The House will come to order. We are at that order of business on House bills on third, or Senate files on third reading and final passage. We have one bill left to consider, Senate File 43. Reading clerk, please read the bill.
Senate File 43, sponsored by Agriculture, Temporary Water Use Agreements Amendments, an act relating to water, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have one amendment. Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to move Amendment 1 on Senate File 43. And after page 2, line 17, after purposes, insert except for the beneficial use of in-stream flows identified in 41-3-1001. I urge you to vote an aye on this. We do need to protect these water rights. And I know there is opposition on this, but I want you all to really think about what's going to happen to these ranchers if we do not protect their water rights. And if we want to say it's double, like we're doing it in other places, that will not hurt this, even if it is. It's going to give it strength, and it'll give this bill a lot of strength for the ranchers and their water rights. Thank you. An aye on it, and an aye on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Banks, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I hate to disagree with the good representative. I don't think that this strengthens the bill. I think it opens it up to potential issues further down the road. Right now, beneficial use in in-stream flow is not a temporary use. So I don't believe it belongs in a temporary use statute. And on top of that, the rights to in-stream flow belong solely to the state of Wyoming. If we start messing up with that language and say, well, now in-stream flow is here, as in here, as in here, and in here, and in here in the statutes, I see potential problems down the road in contested cases and different litigation that says, well, now we have beneficial use of in-stream flow listed in temporary use statutes. What was that purpose if the purpose wasn't to have some temporary use, but just not listed under this subsection? I agree that we have to have protection of our water rights. That's 100% should be our priority. I just disagree that this amendment would do that. So I would be opposed to this amendment and for the bill.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Davis, your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to agree with the previous representative. Let me give you a little history on this. Last year when this bill was in House Ag, it died because of this language was in there. It never made it out of House Ag last year. So this year, this language was stripped out by the other body. It was tried to be reintroduced in committee, and it failed in committee, and it has failed on this floor once already. And here it is again. I just would like to know, what value does this bring to the bill? As the good representative pointed out, it's in statute. Belongs to the state of Wyoming, not in a temporary water use agreement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Winter, Chairman Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't mind objecting to another representative's testimony. So I just wanted folks to know about this. I received an email from the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, and they are pleased that we can't
identify those folks on the floor, Chairman. So probably the group that takes care of our stock and helps it grow. we can't identify the stock those folks on the floor. So
I apologize. It's from the organization that chases cows around.
There you go. That's okay. Please proceed. Any other representatives from the first? Representative Eklund, please.
So I think I've stated before, I'm in favor of this amendment, and it's because we had a room full of ag people that were in support of this, the whole amendment. There were two parts. We passed the second part last time and failed this part of it. The whole thing, according to the people that regulate our water, it'll work. They won't have a problem enacting the law as it is. And last year when it failed, the question that the House Ag Committee asked them was, are you certain that nothing in this bill will harm anyone with appropriated water? And they could not answer affirmative on that. This year, we asked them the same question after the bill, and the bill is a massive difference than what it was last year. This year, we asked them, and they said, no, we have those, all the irrigated and otherwise appropriators, they're in good shape, and we don't have to worry about anybody losing rights in any kind. This language was good with them, and so it's good with me.
Any other representative for their first time? Second time? Oh, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, I was dawdling. I'm kind of still dawdling on the amendment. A little torn because I hear, I'll be honest with you, body, and probably most of you, if not all of you, disagree with me, but I support the use of in-stream flows. And so if we open the gate for more opportunities to have in-stream flow permits in other areas of statute, then maybe it's not terribly bad. I don't know. I mean, I voted against this in committee because I thought that it muddied the bill. Anyway, so I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Any other members? First time? Second time? Want to speak to the amendment second time? Representative Strong, second time. Back to the bringer.
Thank you, Speaker. I was just going to very much encourage an aye on this amendment. Thank you.
Members, you're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 43. All those in favor? Wait a minute, do I have somebody else? I will take testimony from Chairman Winter. Please, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to encourage everybody to vote for this, primarily because there's a lot of junior water users out there and we need to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We are voting on third reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 43. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Amendment has been adopted. Okay, Senate File 43, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Brady. Bratton. Brown Gary. Brown Landon. Byron. Campbell Elisa. Campbell Kevin. Chestick. Clouston. Connolly. Davis. Eklund. Erickson. Filer. Geringer. Guggenmoss. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Heft. Jarvis. Johnson. Kelly. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Lean. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas. Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. No. Reagans excused. Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strzok. Stivar. Tarver. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Worf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker. Campbell Kevin, can you repeat? Aye. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 56 aye, 3 no, 3 excused.
Senate File 43, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 43 has passed the House. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple cleanup items here. Okay, we are at that order of concurrence requests. Chairman Brown. This is in regards to message 350. Bill 226.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message 350 to House Bill 226. And body, I would ask for an aye vote. The amendment here is fairly straightforward. All the other body decided to do was say, hey, look, if you want to buy one of these license plates, you can either pick them up at your county treasurer or the department. So you can apply for these license plates through the current process, which goes to the department, you get it mailed to you, or you can go down to the county treasurer. So a little bit of a good catch here, and would ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Oop. Representative Eklund, please.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not opposed to this. I'm just curious how you're going to know whether to go down to the office that administers this stuff or you go to the county treasurer. I'm a little lost on who's going, how are you going to know where it's at? Because they're long ways apart in town here.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the good former chairman of transportation, it would be the choice of the individual. You could do either way. So you could go down to the county treasurer, or you can actually file via mail, the way that you do some of the other prestige license plates right now to the state Department of Transportation. So you could do either or. It's not a requirement. And that's actually what the other body solved, was finding that we had it dictated that it had to be one way, and I think that there was some confusion as to which way to do that. So this just allows the freedom, we'll call it that, the freedom to do as you wish.
Body, we are voting on motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 226. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, excused Connolly, Davis, Eklund, Erickson, Filer, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, excused, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, repeat, Weber, Worf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 2 no, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 226. We will be moving on to some enrolled acts. First enrolled act for our consideration, we are, at that order of business of signing and put enrolled acts. First enrolled act for our consideration, enrolled act number 26. Reading clerk.
House Enrolled Act 26, being original House Bill 42, an act relating to public health and safety, requiring the licensure of surgical abortion facilities as specified, providing criminal penalties for violations, specifying civil liability for damages resulting from abortions, providing definitions, making conforming amendments, specifying applicability, requiring rulemaking, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Act number 26, which original House Bill 42. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Lawley. Next enrolled act for our consideration, number 27.
House Enrolled Act 27, being original House Bill 181, an act relating to insurance, amending investment authorization for prepaid or prearranged funeral contract proceeds, amending related surety bond provisions, specifying application of purchase monies and investment earnings, requiring notice to contract purchasers, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign enrolled act number 27, being original House Bill 181. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Larson. Lloyd. Next enrolled act for our consideration, number 28.
House Enrolled Act 28, being original House Bill 46, an act relating to education, removing the requirement that a home-based educational program submit curriculum to the local school board, removing a provision relating to the failure to submit curriculum, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign enrolled act number 28, being original House Bill 46. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Straw. Next enrolled act 29.
House Enrolled Act number 29, being original House Bill 39, an act relating to property tax, clarifying the total maximum household income limit for purposes of the property tax refund program, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 29, having been original House Bill 39. I have so signed. It's a revenue bill, ladies and gentlemen. So now that cleans up our enrolled acts. We have any JCCs, Joint Conference Committees, to announce? Representative Geringer. Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your JCC dealing with Senate File 32, unpaved road speed limits, will meet tomorrow after Senate File 33, which the meeting begins at 8 a.m. in West 110.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Locke, Chairman Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Joint Conference Committee for House Bill 11 will be meeting on adjournment today in West 110.
Thank you, Chairman Locke. Vice Chair Tarver.
Mr. Speaker, your joint committee meeting will be for House Bill 28 will be in West 113 at approximately 5:30, or when we adjourn.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Vice Chair Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. JCC for Senate File 33 will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. room W110.
Thank you, Vice Chair Pendergraft. Majority Leader Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The JCC for Senate File 69, homeowners property tax exemption, will be held tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. in room W113.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Any other announcements? Joint Conference Committee announcements? None? Okay. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, I believe that clears the deck.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move that the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion passes. Representative TBD. JT Larson, there he is. That's.
The Committee of the Whole will please come to order. First bill for our consideration is Senate File 46. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 46, sponsored by Senator Landon. Water and sewer districts, bid requirements, an act relating to water and sewer districts. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 46. Water and sewer districts, bid requirements. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber, Yin. Representative Knapp, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Knapp?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Bill number Senate File 46 do pass, and I further move adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. And with the explanation, I will turn it over to the good Minority Leader.
Representative Yan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members, I bring you Senate File 46, Water and Sewer District Bid Requirements. So members, in 2023, we had a Senate file that raised the bid requirements for municipalities. And so the reasoning behind that bill in the past was that municipalities didn't want to go through a full auction process every time they wanted to buy a truck. So we've actually talked about this in this chamber as well. Buying a truck can get over, $25,000, which was the bid requirement at the time. And so they didn't want to go out to an auction process just to buy a truck. So in 2023, we upped that requirement to $75,000 for them. In the last interim, the Corporations Committee actually discussed this for other districts. And so irrigation districts actually came to us and talked to us about it. And then at our very last meeting, water and sewer districts also were interested in seeing if we could do it. We didn't have time to make a committee bill for it at that time. And so you see this Senate file in front of you that was sponsored by members of the Corporations Committee from the interim. Again, all this does is equalize that between the district, this water and sewer district, to the level it is for municipalities, so $75,000. And so they won't have to go through a full bidding process to buy a truck for an irrigation district, for a water and sewer district. And then to bring in the standing committee amendment, we bring in the irrigation districts. So this was again discussed in our interim committee. There was a separate bill for irrigation districts. The committee felt that it would work to fit it into this bill as well. And so this bill brings the water and sewer districts, the irrigation districts to the same level that we have for municipalities now. to up that bid requirement to $75,000. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on the standing committee amendment? Representative Larson Lloyd? No, on the bill, okay. Seeing no further discussion on standing committee amendment number 1, do I hear the question? Question being called on standing committee amendment number 1. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion, Representative Larson Lloyd.
So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the presenter of the bill. I remember the conversation that when they were buying equipment, they didn't want to have to, that 30,000 was less, and so we raised it up. But this goes into a different section too, and so when they're going out for bid for construction or projects, you've raised that as well. Does that conflict with the requirements we have in other titles for public entities bidding construction or major maintenance or repairs? So if you can help me with that, because I think that, I thought that was at $50,000 in Title 16, but maybe you looked at that.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. I don't necessarily have an answer for that for you. I do remember that it was something that we had discussed in the corporation's interim, but I don't remember exactly whether there was conflict with an existing statute. So I'm happy to get with the representative to figure out what that language looks like to see if we need to make any changes to the bill in the future.
Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for the bringer. This number of 75, is it something specific that can be tied to why we're increasing to that number, or is this just something that we chose a number?
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to repeat from my presentation of the bill, the discussion is to match this up with what municipalities have. And so the discussion in 2023 was actually surrounding the cost of a truck. So should you have to go out to bid to buy a new truck for your municipality? We didn't think so in 2023. And so the reason for the bill is to keep that on the even playing field between an irrigation district, a water sewer district, and municipality. So the policy question would be, do you think it's necessary to go out and bid for a truck for these districts if we don't need to do it for a municipality?
Any further discussion on Senate File 46? Question being called and seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of Chairman Knapp's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 46 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 46 is passed committee of the whole. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. Okay, you may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. Senate File 46 is passed Committee of the Whole 33 to 18. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 56. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 56, sponsored by corporations, providing false information to registered agents, an act relating to corporations, partnerships, and associations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred Senate File 56, providing false information to registered agents, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber, Yin. Representative Knapp, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Knapp?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with recommendation that Bill Senate File 56 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. To explain the bill will be the inventor of the amazing grill.
Representative Weber.
I know you all, like me, have been waiting for this. So Senate File 56 is providing false information to registered agents. By the way of a little bit of background, business entities that employ a registered agent are required to provide their registered agent certain contact information. Although this is not filed with the Secretary of State's office, the office has the ability to audit commercial registered agents, which are registered agents who represent 10 or more business entities. However, the Secretary of State's office has ramped up these CRA or commercial registered agent audits. Wyoming law currently does not allow Secretary of State office to administratively dissolve a business entity who has given false or fraudulent information to their commercial registered agent when that information becomes known to the Secretary of State office. So from an overview, SF 56 will give the Secretary of State another tool to take on business fraud in Wyoming by allowing for the dissolution in 2 instances. 1, during an audit of a commercial registered agent, if they determine the entity has filed false or fraudulent information to their registered agent, or 2, if the Secretary of State's office is notified by the registered agent that a business entity has filed false or fraudulent information with the registered agent. As a brief walkthrough through the bill, it essentially inserts this identical authority for administrative dissolution if it is in the public interest and the following areas in the following areas of the law. Beginning on page 2, going into page 3 allows for administrative dissolution for domestic for-profit corporations, and those would be corporations formed in Wyoming. Beginning on page 3 and on to page 4 allows for the revocation of certificate of authority for foreign for-profit corporations. So on page 4, going into page 5, allows for the administrative dissolution for domestic nonprofit corporations, which are corporations formed under the laws of Wyoming. And on to page 5 and 6 allows for the revocation of certificate of authority for foreign nonprofit corporations. And beginning on 6 and 7 allows this authority for limited liability companies. And on to page 7 and 8, this allows this authority for statutory foundations. And at this time, on the bottom of page 8, line 20, this is where the amendment comes in. And this is only affecting the effective date. So on page 8, line 20, delete July 1st, 2025, and insert immediately upon completion of all acts necessary for a bill to become a law as provided. So I would ask for your favorable vote on the Standing Committee amendment and the bill. Thank you.
Any discussion on the Standing Committee Amendment Number 1? Seeing no discussion, do I hear the question? Question being called on Standing Committee Amendment Number 1. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for the bringer. My question relates to due process. And who determines whether a filing is fraudulent? How is that done? Is there some way for the entity to contest that finding? Is there a way to appeal it? I'm just not quite sure how the determination is made as to what's false or fraudulent, and how the entities can be protected again. If they think that their information was true and not false, how do they contest that?
Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. I will inquire on that, on how that information, what that process is, and get back with the good representative.
Any further discussion on Senate File 56? Seeing none, do I hear the question? Oh, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment on the bill. A couple years ago, when I was in corporations and things, we started looking at just different meetings and things like that. So an interest of mine came up, I guess it was 4 years ago, came up with the LLCs and different things. And I was like, well, how do you know this and how do you know that? And so there really wasn't an avenue to know if there was something that wasn't right until there was a big problem. Because as long as they paid the fee for their entity, all was well and good until there was a problem. But people started reporting addresses, the voice started getting out there amongst the people and legislators, and I think that brought us to this bill. So I'm really glad to see it. It's good for all entities involved, for the business entity, but also for people in the community who may be having their property under somebody else's name and they don't even know it. So we have a lot of things going on, but the bill, I believe, is a good one.
Any further discussion on Senate File 56? Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree too. I think that this is a good bill. I think this is a good step in the right direction. I hope we can have further discussion potentially on second reading about what that process is if someone wants to contest that their information isn't fraudulent, because I think if you can dissolve someone's business LLC without having a process to say, this is accurate information that I gave, and I disagree with the people that have made this ruling, i.e. the government, there's a potential problem with that, right? So I don't know, I guess part of me is saying this because I'm hoping we can work with the committee or supporters of the bill, but I do think it's important that we provide something that says if it is found that it's contested before it is dissolved, there's an opportunity for people to say, nope, this is the information and why I gave it this way. Thank you.
Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the comment. I will be getting with the other entity and discussing that and get back with everybody before second reading. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion on Senate File 56? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Knapp's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 56 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 56 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 74. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 74, sponsored by Labor. Immunity for drug overdose reporting, an act relating to controlled substances. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 74 engrossed. Immunity for drug overdose reporting. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Clauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez, Williams, Wasserberger, Yen. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez Williams, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Rodriguez Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 74 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. And I will turn the explanation over about the bill to the good representative from Coal Country, But I'm happy to move the standing committee amendment and give it a brief explanation beforehand.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Simple amendment here made by the committee. On page 2, line 14, we delete a comma. On page 3, lines 22 and 23, we delete a section entirely and renumber it. On page 4, lines 1 through 14, we delete entirely those lines. And then on page 4, line 16, we delete the letter E and insert D. Page 5, line 10, we delete F and insert E. And that's pretty much the explanation of the standing committee amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the standing committee amendment? Question being called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye. All those opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a bill dealing with when people are experiencing a drug overdose, they can call in and saying, I'm having a drug overdose, or if someone's with them and they see someone's going through this drug overdose, they can call in and get medical help with immunity. So they will not be punished for calling this in. So we heard from our law enforcement people that Wyoming is the only state without this law. They were in favor of this law. Again, the goal here is to try to help people. We hear, especially from our college age people, their friends may be going through an overdose situation and they don't want to call in because nobody wants to get in trouble and they leave these people alone. So this is a bill to try to protect someone going in that situation. We did do a large amendment, page 3, starting on line 22, into page 4, line 14. There was a section in there that you could only call in twice a year. And the question is, who's going to keep track of that? And then also, we didn't want to confuse the issue or discourage anybody from calling in and helping. So that's really the bill. It's there to help protect people and get them help when they need it and provide that immunity statute. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Senate File 74? Seeing none. Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of questions. When it talks about, let's go to, throughout the bill, it mentions the word drug. Does this also include alcohol for those that may have alcohol poisoning? And then, oh, we deleted it in the amendment. So that would be my only question. Thank you.
Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess if there's no further questions, I suggest we vote on the bill. Thank you.
All right. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Rodriguez-Williams' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 74 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 74 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 113.
Senate File 113, sponsored by Senator Hutchings, Brader Opportunity Act, an act relating to professions and occupations. Mr. Speaker, you're at Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 113, Brader Opportunity Act. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Clouston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger, Yin. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Rodriguez-Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 113 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. For the explanation of the bill and the Standing Committee amendment, I'm going to turn that over to the good representative from the land of the Tetons.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, members, This is a bill that came from a constituent of the sponsor to really make sure that they could actually operate their small business in the state. To become a hair braider in the state of Wyoming, to do it other than just braiding someone's personal hair, not for business, but to do it as a business, requires a hair braider in Wyoming to get a full cosmetology license. What does a full cosmetology license entail? To go through the schooling and licensure could entail up to $15,000 to $20,000 just to get that full license, right? So, and there's a good reason for that, right? So, folks who cut hair and do cosmetology deal with abrasive chemicals, deal with blades near the skin. There are a lot of good reasons for them to get a full cosmetology license, but hair braiders don't do any of those things. They braid hair. So what this bill does is it pulls out hair braiders out of the cosmetology license requirement. And so those folks who want to just do hair braiding as a business can do that without that license. And that's fairly simply what the bill is. Let me bring up the amendment because I totally forgot that we had that, and that is my fault. The standing committee amendment is just to make it effective immediately. That's it. Pretty easy peasy, pretty simple bill. Happy to answer any questions on the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any further discussion on Standing Committee Amendment number 1? Question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 1, please say aye. Opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Rodriguez-Williams' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 113 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 113 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 106. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 106, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Motor vehicle dealer and manufacturer warranty rates. An act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 106, Motor Vehicle Dealer and Manufacturer Warranty Rates, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 106 do pass, and I will explain the bill very quickly. I sense that the body might be half asleep. Okay, more closely to like 3/4 asleep, Mr. Chairman, but that's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably one of the more simple bills. Has just very little impact on what our day-to-day operations are, but this has a major impact to your local car dealerships in your communities. And what this bill does is kind of goes into the franchise dealership laws, but we try to not muddy the waters by talking about the franchise dealership laws. And the reason being is because that becomes a very, very deep discussion. What this bill is doing is going in and saying, hey, look, we established those franchise dealership laws about 30, 40 years ago, and we put them into statute, and we said, you can only mark up your parts and labor by 30%. And this body, in their infinite wisdom, just put that into statute and said that's what it's good for. Well, the problem is we're the only state in the entire country to have done something like that. And so what has happened over the past 30 to 40 years is these franchise reimbursement rates have changed. And so these franchise reimbursement rates get renegotiated on an annual basis. Every other state in the country does this on an annual basis. They do it one time, and then they come back and they say, okay, we're going to reimburse you for X%. Well, what this bill does is this removes that 30% that we have put into statute right now and provides the mechanism for our dealerships to be able to go back to their manufacturers and have these negotiations once a year. And that is, in essence, what the bill does. I can go into far more detail if anybody wants to talk about it. I'm not seeing anybody who really wants to go into it, but Mr. Chairman, that is, in essence, what the bill does, and I will stand for any questions.
Further discussion, Representative Heft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wholeheartedly support this bill. I worked in this industry for 43 years. If I could recover my losses from warranty pay, General Motors would award me a pickup, a Corvette, and a ball cap. This is a really good bill. It has some good sideboards on it. It's a responsible bill. It allows both sides to work together. And if you want to know more about it, I was a service manager. I had to do these surveys and things. This is a cool bill. It really reinforces the industry. And the thing that we've run into is because of loss of warranty pay, we were losing a lot of technicians in the industry because, quite frankly, it was paying, if you got paid 30% for some jobs, that was good. So this will bring more people to stay in the industry. It'll help support it. I see this as a win-win. And it may possibly, I can't guarantee you what they're gonna do, it could cause your customer pay labor rates to come down some, because the loss in warranty pay is part of overhead, and unfortunately, it gets added to customer pay labor rate, and if you've taken your pickup in, you know what that costs. So, vote aye on the bill.
Further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 106 does pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 106 is passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 26. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 26, sponsored by Transportation, Protection of Military Equipment, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 26, Protection of Military Equipment, respectfully report, same back to the House, with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 26 do pass. And I do not believe I have any amendments on this one. So I will turn there is a standing committee amendment. I will further move the standing committee amendment, and I will move both of the explanation of the amendment as well as the explanation of the bill over to the good representative of credit unions. Oh, wait, sorry, that's not the right one.
Representative Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we do here, this bill relates to the officers in the military. So first I'll just say what the amendment is because it's quick and easy. On page 3, it's a technical correction. We, in the drafting of the bill, forgot to add in the line of the section and state security officers. So it'll read National Guard members and state security officers in that line there. So what we do in this bill is extend immunity for civil or criminal liability for acts committed in the performance of the necessary duties to state security officers employed by the military department. So the problem we're having now is these officers who are protecting military assets, which they couldn't tell us what those assets are, that's classified, but think of planes and such. And the problem that we're seeing is these security officers can't do their jobs properly because of liability concerns. So what we're doing is extending that liability to these state security officers. On page 2, we define what that is. A state security officer means a person employed by the military department whose primary duties include being armed and securing military assets controlled by the military department. So we go into statute 199401 and we add after members of the Wyoming National Guard in active state service or state security officer, and then goes into the statute shall not incur personal liability for incidences occurring under their service, which is performing under orders by the governor or lawful superior. So I guess just going back to support of the amendment, it adds in statute 19.9.401 into the definition National Guard members, and this amendment would include and state security officers into that. So that is a standing committee amendment.
Any further discussion on standing committee amendment number 1? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 26 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 26 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 152.
Senate File 152, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Wildfire Management Task Force and State Forester, an act relating to state lands. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom referred Senate File 152 engrossed. Wildfire Management Task Force and State Forester, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Bear?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 152 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment, and I will pass both the description of the bill and the Standing Committee amendment over to the good representative from Coal Country.
Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move, oh, you already moved it. Okay, so the standing committee amendment is moved. And you will see on the standing committee amendment, there was some cleanup on just subdivision. We pluralized it to subdivisions. 2 members were removed from the task force to kind of shorten it down. When we heard some testimony from the former person who takes care of our forests and trees, he did feel that that committee could get a little large. We could get too many opinions and not get work done. So we did decrease that. We also took the $40 million for the governor's borrowing authority. That's what they had in the bill, but this body passed $30 million, which was an increase already on the governor's borrowing authority. It was $20 million. We increased it to $30 million. And so with this, we just brought it back down to what we had passed out in budget at $30 million. So I move that and ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on standing committee amendment number 1? Question being called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion. Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 152. That's not what we're on?
Members, that is online. So go ahead, Representative Davis.
Okay, body, this is just a little simple thing that I stumbled across there. On page 2, line 7 and line 8, they use he shall serve at the pleasure of the board and he shall have a bachelor's degree. I think we should put in there the forester shall serve as the pleasure of the board and the forester shall have a bachelor's degree. And with that, I'd ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on committee of the whole amendment number 1, Representative Angelos.
I definitely consider this friendly since our current forester is a female. So I think this is a good catch.
Question being called on committee of the whole amendment number 1. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Committee of the whole amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion, Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to explain this bill a little more because it's kind of thick and it actually does 3 things. So it amends the duties of our state forester. It creates a wildfire task force. And then the end is the budget request from the governor to reimburse all of our fire suppression accounts, which we already did. So we're ahead on this bill already. So in section 1, you will see that it amends the duties of the state forester, and the current statute for our state forester is really vague. However, they have historically overseen our state wildfire prevention and suppression efforts. This bill will amend Chapter 36, creating a new section describing their duties. And this defines their cooperations with federal agencies and all political subdivisions. The newly created section uses the same language that we use in Chapter 35 for the duties of fire marshal. So in Section 2, you'll see that it creates the Wildfire Management Task Force with 23 counties and 70 fire districts across Wyoming. The task force will improve statewide coordination in preparedness, response, training, logistical support, and in funding. Communication between the different agencies was and is a challenge, and something we learned from several town halls over this last year's fire season. I think you could talk to anybody that had a town hall in their fire, and this was a big concern. And they're all interrelated between the fire districts and Wyoming State Forestry. Wyoming has not changed our fire management model in decades, even though wildfires have become more frequent and more costly. The committee will likely review other states' fire management models. So other states have very vigorous ones, states with a lot more trees than we have. And so they'll look at state capacity versus county capacity versus federal capacity and find areas to make improvements for Wyoming. And you'll hear that capacity word a lot. So capacity within fire districts and state forestry has changed over the years significantly, with a reduced number of volunteer firefighters, reduced number of state forestry inmate hand crews. We used to have 4, we're down to 1 statewide, and the loss of critical experience in the counties and state agencies. The committee will review county and state capacity to respond to wildfires and make recommendations for our next steps on how to improve our efficiency. The committee will also review the challenges with fire insurance and homeowners' business and find possible solutions to reduce the impact. So in our community, in Coal Country, there is commercial buildings that are losing their fire insurance. And they're 5 miles from where the fire was. So we're already seeing this right now, and it is a concern in all of our communities. You're going to see that there's a fiscal note of $50,000 for the task force, and it will take place almost effective immediately. So over this spring and summer, over this next year, 2025, and they will report to the governor by November 15th of 2025. So they want to get it done really quick. The funds not used will revert, and the main point of the task force is to start working on solving gaps identified from last year's wildfire season, preparedness, response, and billing and funding. This is a timely committee as there are uncertainties to our federal firefighting workforce and its impacts to fire management in Wyoming. We've seen that kind of across federal right now. And then Section 3, they are the budget requests from the governor to restore the funds expended by the state to suppress the wildfires that occurred in 2024. And this all has prevailing language. As I said, we already passed this in our budget, so we're ahead of the game. And I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions or discussion on this bill? Representative Haroldson? No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on and for the bill, obviously my name's on the bill, but this is addressing something that we've seen come forward most recently in this last year. Obviously, this last year brought forth a lot of eye-opening moments in the fire prevention and fire, the firefighting realm, the wildfire management realm. But one of the things we're finding is that whenever a wildfire comes that has multiple landowner involvement in the realm of the state of Wyoming, BLM, I guess I can't say that because that's not in here. But the state of Wyoming or our federal agencies or private lands, we're not clear on what the role of the state is in those, and if we can tie into the funding in those fires. And so this would just address that. This would bring it into a place where it would definitely address and correct a problem that we've had, where the state is needing to be involved and be part of the funding model when we are fighting fires on their land. And so on and for it, and believe this is a good clarifier to in some ways align what we're currently doing, and at the same time clarify that which needs to be done. So on and for.
Further discussion on Senate File 152? Seeing none, do I hear the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Bear's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so at the recommendation that Senate File 152 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 152 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 121. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 121, sponsored by Senator Boner. Rodeo license plate, an act relating to motor vehicle license plates. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 121, rodeo license plate, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Davis, Eklund, Johnson, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Representative Winter, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Winter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Bill number 1, Senate File 121, do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. And the good representative from this county will explain the bill.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you all know, Wyoming is the official sport of, rodeo is the official sport of Wyoming. And this bill brings up a prestige license plate with rodeo on it. We raised the fee to $20. The state gets $30 for producing the plate, and the $20 will go to the University of Wyoming and community college rodeo teams to help support them. So I would appreciate your support on this amendment and support this bill. And thank you very much.
Further discussion on, we have a standing committee amendment. Is there discussion on standing committee amendment number 1? Seeing none, do I hear the question? Question being called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye. Opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Representative Washit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for the bringer. How many of these specialty license plates do we have now? It seems like we're getting more and more and more. And at some point, we just have to always remember the primary purpose of a license plate is so that we can identify who the operator is, who owns that vehicle. And, you start adding too many colors and designs, and pretty soon you can't even tell what state the thing's from. So I just curious, how many do we have now?
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a valid question, and it's a question that comes up, I think, every single year when we have the 4 to 5 license plate bills that come before these bodies. And the answer is, I don't know. And I think it's a very valid question, but one thing that is nice is because we have drafted so many of these license plate bills over the past 10, 15 years, there's some pretty boilerplate language inside the bill that kind of protects against what you're concerned about. And that is that if not enough plates are sold, then those plates go out and they retire out within 2 years. So this is kind of a testing of the waters, if you will. I'm not sure what this one is. I didn't get a chance to look fully at but it's usually at least 500. So it's usually at least 250, and that kind of protects against it. And that also gives a little bit of cost break to the department as well, because once we have to go through this process to create the new plate, send it in, get it verified, make sure it matches all the requirements across the Department of Transportation standards from the federal level. There's a cost involved in that. And so it requires at least 250 plates. This one requires at least 500 to be sold. There's a little bit of protection against that. So again, I agree with the good former fire or law enforcement chief that that's what we originally meant for these license plates to do. So I would say this is no different than any of the other license plates that we've seen come across here in the past 10 to 15 years. It's just the flavor of the day.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill. I think it's a great opportunity for these teams to get some funding. Just curious if anybody on the committee, if there was any discussion about the design of the plate and whether or not somebody from the committee or this body would get to have some input in the design.
Any further discussion? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The design of this license plate was kind of left up to Senator Boner, who sponsored this bill, and he's going to leave it up to the state of Wyoming. So we don't know what it's going to look like.
Further discussion, Representative Lisa Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was quickly reading through this, so please excuse me if I missed it. Absolutely in support of, how do we generate some additional revenue to support our community college and university rodeo teams? I like that idea a lot. I'm not finding in here, though, how we're going to distribute those funds. Does it go to like the 4-year first and then goes to the 2-year? How do we decide which teams and how much? So what does that allocation process look like? That was my biggest question right now. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, do I hear the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Winter's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 121 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 121 is passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 145. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 145, sponsored by Senator Nethercott. Local governments, investment in equities, an act relating to public funds. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 145 engrossed. Local governments, investment in equities. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Vice Chair Pendergraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 145 does pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee Amendment, and I will turn over the explanation of the bill and the Standing Committee Amendment to the legislator that I most look up to.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate File 145, this is a simple, common sense, and probably overdue bill. What we're looking at here is that we allow our local governments to invest. We allow them to invest in mortgage-backed securities, corporate bonds, money markets, other types of bonds, and treasuries. We're going to add equities. So, and we're not talking here about gambling on stocks. What we're talking about here is investment rules according to the state, the board that oversees our investments in the state. And we're talking mutual funds. We're talking safe, conservative investments that would allow our local communities to invest long-term and get better returns and be able to do more for their community and with their investments. The standing amendment, the Standing Committee Amendment, is on page 2, line 13, and the original bill said that a local government may establish an investing board, and we decided it shall establish an investing board just for added security in the public money. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Further discussion on Standing Committee Amendment number 1? Seeing none. Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Lean, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, how much do we anticipate this board to cost, or is it just an advisory panel?
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board would be established by the local government. So whether they had decided to contract out or just have people who volunteered, the stipulations of it, really just what we're doing here is taking away the requirement for them to ask the state treasurer to invest in equities for them. And then they take that responsibility on themselves. But as far as actual costs, that would probably depend on the community and the size of their investment board and who they got involved.
Further discussion on Standing Committee Amendment number 1, Representative, Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for this amendment, I think it's good that sometimes our local governments don't have the expertise, the councils, and so I think to have people in the community that do this day in and day out is a great advantage for this. Thank you.
Further discussion on Standing Committee Amendment number 1? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 1, please say aye. Opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Representative Kelly. Representative Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a really good bill. Having been a commissioner a few years back, I wish we would have had this available to us. And with the way our local county funds might be looking in the near future, I think this is a great opportunity for them to be able to use their investment, get their investments in it. It's a wise way for them to do this, and there's protections built in this bill, so I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Vice Chair Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill. It wasn't too long ago that this body created the means for this to happen through the guy who's in charge of all the investment for the states. And it was beginning to cause problems in that office. It was beginning to cause problems with communities, and it just became evident that what we thought was going to work out pretty well doesn't work out for everybody. That path is still available, so communities can do that and go through that person. But this just adds one more option to them, and yeah, on and for the bill.
Representative Washit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of years ago in County Number 1, our commissioners sold our hospital property, and that generated a significant amount of money. And it would be really beneficial to our county if we could invest that in a way that gives us significant returns. And so I'm on and for this bill.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of questions. I haven't decided how I want to vote on this piece of legislation. I'm looking to see how long have the investments been? Are we looking about 5 years? Are we talking about 20 years? Are we talking about a year? Are these investments planned for? And if they have an unexpected water main break, do they have the funding to the side to be able to replace that kind of thing? Did you receive any testimony on how many counties or municipalities have enough money to invest and are looking to do so today? What is the volatility of the accounts that we're looking at? And I just ask, if other legislation is to go through, are these municipalities and counties able to fund themselves with us making determinations of their expenditures for their budgets?
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll tack onto a couple of those questions real quick. 5 to 7 years at a minimum, and it can continue on past that. Volatility will be decided by that team that's helping with the investments. I mean, obviously, you can invest at whatever level of risk you want, But really, the idea is if you're going to be looking at pulling 5 to 7 years, you're going to be going at a lower risk. And if you're looking at going 30 years, you might be at a higher risk. That's, again, up to that group. But this is the thing, as this came before us and as we voted on this, one of the things I think we need to understand, 20 some odd of you weren't here last year whenever I was desperately trying to fund a water tower. But we had an issue where we had a 20-year-old water tower that went down. You can't plan for that, really. I mean, they shouldn't go out at that point, but it did. And when you have long-term equities like this gives municipalities the opportunity to put money aside for those what-if moments. Well, what if that tower doesn't make it that far? What if the sewer system doesn't go like it should? What if there just isn't the money on the state level for MRG funds for this, that, or the other? So I think that giving our municipalities the opportunity for equities and our local governments the opportunity for equities is going to open us up into an opportunity for them to be able to help fund their own projects and their own needs more in depth. And so on and for, and I think that we've already heard the people, and I think this is just aligning statute with what the people have asked.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker or Chairman. You're not the speaker yet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm full force and in favor of this bill, and there's basically one real reason why, and that is because we hamstring our local governments already with their revenue streams that they can get their hands on. This is a really good arrow in the quiver that they may have and may use. There's no requirement on this, right? Some communities may not actually utilize this whatsoever. But if they do, there is protection with them with the board that's being implemented here, number one. But number two, when we're talking about reducing property taxes and a revenue stream to our local communities, this particular opportunity may possibly alleviate some of that burden that these local communities are going to face when they have a reduction in that revenue stream. So this is good policy. I appreciate the fact that we already allow them to invest in a whole bunch of others. So this is just really opening it up and saying, hey, look, if the state can do it, we're going to allow you guys to do it too. And so I think this is leveling the playing field and giving this back to the local municipalities and those county commissioners that we all just love. So on and for.
Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to say I'm in favor of this bill, guys. We're doing some very strategic movements to try and reduce property taxes for people. And so that is a lot of the pushback that we're getting from a lot of folks, is that we're taking away revenue from them. So this would give them another option to be able to make money without taxing the citizens, ladies and gentlemen. As far as the concern goes on the volatility of what investments they're choosing, I would imagine if these are, for example, my home county, with what they would have available to invest, they're probably not going to invest in very volatile stuff, because you're not going to take a big fish and put it into a small pond of water, because then that makes that investment essentially worthless. Hedge fund managers have to think about that all the time, where something that's smaller and is a little bit more volatile, their returns might be significantly greater, but because of how much liquidity they have, it kills the return on their investment. It makes those investments a very easy pump and dump. And so they go in there, and then you got the small retailers who come in and invest after they see the big news on this big fish going in and investing in it. And with the small liquidity from your small retail trader investors, they have such a small amount of liquidity that their returns for the big fish just isn't much for them to gobble up. So they're going to invest in these bigger companies that are a lot less volatile, because their big dip in that pond is going to be more like an ocean, where you're not going to notice the level of water increasing when you put that giant fish into the water. So I would imagine that most of these companies, or most of these municipalities, would be investing in investments that have low volatility. If they are going to take some of that risk and go into something that's a smaller allocation, they're going to use what you call risk management. And risk management is something that you put in place so you're able to manage that risk that you take on with those high volatile assets. So for example, that's why with that state funds investment in Bitcoin bill I was running, because that's such a volatile asset, that's why I had that risk allocation to where it's just 3%. That way, so on your upside, it looks really good. But then on your downside, if your investment goes to 0, 3% is not going to kill your portfolio. So I'm in favor of this, guys. I mean, again, with them investing in things that are likely low volatility, these things are also going to be paying out interest for them as well. And that's going to be able to help them fund their projects without taxing our citizens. So I would encourage an aye vote on this bill.
Further discussion on the bill? Representative Larson Lloyd.
So folks, just a little bit of history on how we got to this point. This has been a conversation in the CapFin committee for about 3 years with the, we established through the state a WildStar 3 that allowed local municipalities to invest through a state, through the number 3 there that takes care of our state investments. One of the challenges that came out when WildStar 3 was put into place is a lot of your municipalities, bless their hearts, some just didn't have the expertise that and understood long-term rate of returns. And so they wanted to use that like a checkbook. So they would have an amount in there for a short period of time and then want to draw it back out. And with the WildStar 3, that was not possible. And it become frustrating to them. And so a lot of them says, well, we would like to be able to invest on our own. Okay. And here we are. We have this, and I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I think one of the challenges when we talk about having the investment committee be there, in the treasurer's office, the investment committee has handled 500 million or more in assets for a period of 5 or 6. I mean, these guys know how to invest. I don't know that this talks about the requirements or the qualifications for a local investment committee and what they would put that in. Okay, but just understand that's a little bit subjective to and limiting. Will this investment committee be fiduciaries? Is that requirement there? We don't talk about that. They get to select the asset manager who's going to do that, and that's fine. They want that ability to do that. I think we have to understand, though, that giving them that ability is that then if investments go south or there's a problem, they have to, as the state has to, accept responsibility for its investments. Our local communities, our local entities are going to have to take the accountability for those. I'm not saying, I am not predicting that everything will go south. I'm just saying we're at this new game in the history of the state where we're now letting these locals have that ability to invest their assets. I'm not saying that that's bad, but with that comes some accountability that they'll have to accept. We get up here and talk about the various options that might be available. I'm sure risk management, I'm sure, but there are a heightened level of risk for them. They're willing to take it. They're going to have to accept those pluses and minuses. And we just have to make sure that our locals, when we talk to them, as this passes and they say, oh goody, here we go, great, good luck. We hope you don't skin your knees, but if you do get back up and get on the bike and ride again, not sure that we're going to be there to pick you up. And so they just have to have a clear understanding of that. So I think there's been a lot of work over the last 3 years, and it is a new place. They could still invest in the WildStar 3 if they wanted to be more secure. So Thank you.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need to refocus this conversation a little bit. We need to understand that these local communities already have the ability and already are investing their funds. And they're already investing them in things that can crash, like mortgage-backed securities. If you remember the real estate collapse of not that long ago. They can invest in corporate bonds, which also can have issues too. So what we're doing here, in addition to all, the myriad of investments they can already make, we're allowing them to expand to one more tool. This is giving them more flexibility to do what they want with their own funds, to go into carefully managed equity funds. They're not going to be allowed to buy a single stock, the pump and dump, as a good representative said. These are rules set forth by the board that oversees the investments in the state. And just not that long ago, we were having a conversation about how wonderful these people know how to invest money, and this is one of the instruments in which they invest. And we believe that if our state can invest in equity funds, we could allow that option. We're not telling the localities what to do, the option for them to get a greater return on long-term investments. They're going to do short-term. They can buy money markets. They could buy treasuries. But this is, again, adding flexibility for the local communities to do what they want with their own funds with a chance for greater returns. And it is in the bill that they're responsible for it, that they won't be coming to the state looking to get this, saying, you did this to us. But again, I don't see that happening because as far as a long-term investment goes, stock market, widely diversified mutual funds, pretty safe bet.
Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for that clarification. I have some additional questions and maybe would like to talk to you about a second reading amendment. I would like to make sure that this, just make sure that this information, these investments are transparent. And maybe there's a place for that in this bill. I know that as we looked for data on the general fund revenues for each of the counties and municipalities, it's a bit of a challenge sometimes to find that information, and perhaps there's a place for some additional transparency in this bill as well. Thank you.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just realized it can say State Loan and Investment Board because it's written in here. There are 20-something pages, if you go to the State Loan and Investment Board, on their policies, and it says, investments made under this paragraph shall comply with all provisions of investment policy statements applicable to local government investing adopted by the State Loan and Investment Board. So there's already a huge amount of sideboards and restrictions and policies they must follow to do this investment. So this is not being made up out of thin air. These are things that are already written. The rules are already made, and we're just saying, by the way, in addition to this myriad of things in which you can invest, we're going to add equity funds too.
Representative Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this year, the House passed a bill in session not to invest in anything related to ESG. So I just wanted to be sure that this, that would apply to this bill that we're speaking of. Thank you.
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the tall representative for covering refocusing the point here, and that it's just adding an extra arrow in the quiver, and also that there is SLIB policy, and that actually goes directly to the good representative that just spoke to with ESG and having to that the SLIB board already has ESG policy in there. That helps to answer that question, I think. One other point that I wanted to make too is that there are some communities that actually plan long-term for projects, and they're collecting money over time. And so, and it's specifically earmarked or in coffee cans, if you will, that gets separated out. They're not touching it for any other purpose. They wouldn't be touching it necessarily for emergencies, but it's for specific projects. And those are an excellent, for a long-term project like that, that's an excellent use for this kind of an investment.
Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing that I just recently heard from the representative that's presenting this bill is that we're already allowing people to have investments into things like mortgage-backed securities. Guys, I would consider that to actually be a pretty high-risk investment. And so to be allowing our them to have a board that can actually oversee and to be able to invest in other securities, that would help give us some risk diversification to help lower that risk from a very volatile asset like a mortgage-backed security. The thing you got to think about with mortgage-backed securities is if you've got somebody that stops paying their home loan, are you going to get paid on that security? No. So that's why I would actually encourage this even more now after hearing our speaker mention that, is because I mean, for folks that may not be aware of this, but there's companies out there that have been raising their dividends for over 50 years. They call them dividend kings. But these companies, you know, you can look up the list of them, but these companies have raised their dividends in the years of 2008, and you've even seen that happen in the year of 1929 with some companies. Not all of them are around to this day. As far as raising their dividends back in 1929, they weren't raising them, but those were your companies that you'd consider dividend zombies, where they were paying dividends for over 100 years. So being able to open this up for that risk diversification and allowing our municipalities to be able to invest into these securities would actually help lower that risk if we're already doing these mortgage-backed securities. So I would highly encourage an aye vote on this.
Vice Chair Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to reiterate a couple things that you'd heard on and for the bill, by the way. And I wasn't in the beginning. When I went in and was looking at this bill and wanted to hear the testimony on it, I was convinced that I was going to be a no. I learned a number of things, including the rules that were mentioned earlier. There are extensive rules. There are lots of audits. There are lots of sideboards on this. And also some of the complexity of some of the projects that are involved that require some long-term saving and being able to stay ahead of inflation so that you're actually not just sitting there spinning your wheels and losing money. I think that's sufficient. I do think one of the questions that I asked of everybody that was in there to testify is how much is too much? At what point do you say we've got all this cash and that's enough? And there may be a need to put some sort of limitations on that. We discussed several ideas about that, and I believe that a number of us will be monitoring that and making some recommendations down the road. But at this point, I think this is a very good first step at allowing us to use the money in municipalities a little bit more effectively, and I am a vote.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some questions, maybe investment for municipalities 101. But what I was wondering was, is the money that we're talking about or increasing or whatever, is that for the smaller counties? Are they going to be able to, or do they currently pool those monies together to grow or to have a larger chunk of the pie? Secondly, with the reserve amount, are there caps on these reserves, or what do they come out of? Do they come out of like their general fund or other places where they may be making money, or grants, or wherever this money is able to come from? And is this for counties and municipalities? Thank you.
Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think to answer that last part was yes for counties and municipalities, but I think this all comes really from 2022, the voters passed a constitutional amendment. Actually, the amendment was sponsored by a former representative from Natrona County, and it really happened after we sold our public hospital, which started as a Wyoming kind of state branch of a hospital back in the 1800s, and then we sold that thing, and so we've got $106 million. and how to invest that. And I know there's been some handouts about surpluses to counties, and my county is one of the higher ones. It's because of that. And they've kept this 106 million sale price and some other money in a trust, really, to benefit health causes in our community. Okay, so we passed the constitutional amendment, the voters do. We haven't really done anything since. And we've tried. If you look on, the person that invests our state's money, you'll see a couple programs, YO Star 1 and YO Star 2. I think the first was 1980s and the second was probably 25 years ago, but they're more shorter term, rate of return around 4 or 5%, and different amounts to put in there. And they've been pretty well used. Well, the whole conversation since 2022 has been, should we create YO Star 3 and allow local governments to get in and let our investment team here at the state grow that wealth? Or do we allow these 99 municipalities and 23 counties and maybe special districts or whatever else to invest on their own? And this bill allows them to invest on their own. Now, it's got some sideboards. The State Loan Investment Board sideboards. Now we require an investment board. I don't know. I'm not doing jumping jacks over this bill. I think it's good, but I think what's the most cost-effective way to invest the public money? I don't know. Is it through kind of the state where we've already got the infrastructure set up, or is it to let everybody else set up their own infrastructure? It's a good question for this body to think about over the next couple days of readings on this amendment. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that information. But it gave me a couple other questions. Say with this hospital in this municipality, with the aging out of a lot of our hospitals and schools and government buildings and all these things, if there's a government building or a municipality-owned building that is sold, should that money go to pay off debt? Like, what is the ratio of interest on debt compared to investment? Thank you.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'd like to refocus the debate on the bill. I think we're starting to fade off into not so much should the localities, counties, and cities be allowed to expand their investments beyond the multitude of things they already invest in into equities as well. Now we're starting to get into should they be allowed to invest their own money, and that's not what this bill is about. They're already investing it. And this is giving them an opportunity to get something that outpaces inflation, especially if it's long-term. Money markets are not good. They usually pay less interest than the rate of inflation. They're good for short-term savings, they're not good for long-term. Now, if a county had a windfall by selling something, that's what we're fading into. What should they do with that money? But the concern earlier was we shouldn't be telling them what to do with their money at that point. So I'm just going to stand here and say that I'm still on and for this bill because, again, we are opening options up for what local communities are already doing, and it's a good option.
Representative Cannoli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really like that name. So my question is, I don't think, I really like this bill, and if a county or a municipality, I'm just speaking county because that's what I know, if they want to invest in the YO Star 3 program, I don't think there's anything in this, or 2, there's nothing in this that would prevent them from doing that. So if they want to take advantage of that as opposed to doing something with this, they can. And I think it's really wise financial planning for the counties and the cities to be able to put money aside like this to pay for these projects that they're working on, especially like my little community of Claremont. They've been trying to come up with money for years to try to get their water fixed. Well, if they'd been able to use something like this, eventually they could pay for it a lot easier. And I think that's being responsible to the taxpayers. So on in favor of this bill.
Representative Lean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few more questions. Nowhere in this bill does it talk about reserves, a percentage to be kept back, or what they have to keep in, per se, their rainy day fund. Are we open to an amendment on that? On page 2, lines 10 through 12, it talks about all risks associated are to the government entity making the investment. Well, these are all tax dollars, so if we lose this money, do the taxpayers have some kind of recourse? And my last one is, how do our local governments have enough taxpayer dollars that they want to invest?
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the previous representative, those are good questions. And I think that the good Vice Chairman of Appropriations kind of hit on that a little bit earlier, that there are some questions about maybe some of the restrictions that might need to be placed on municipalities and counties. But I think that's something for a different bill. When we're talking about how much can be in reserves and things like that, we're only talking about allowing one extra area of investment. We're not talking about the concept in general. They already have the ability to do that. And so I don't think this is quite the right bill to be looking at doing that. I think it's something that could be dealt with in a different topic.
For further discussion, Representative Connolly.
Who were you recognizing? Was that Cannoli or Connolly?
Either or.
Just for an example of what a county might invest in. Right now, our county has a Lake DeSmet, and there's funding that's set aside in the reserves to help keep that lake going in those projects that need to happen for the lake. In the reserves, there are a number of projects that are allocated and identified so that it's transparent of what's in that reserve account. And this would allow them to be able to take those funds, invest them, and keep it going for when they need to use those project funds with a specifically already identified project.
Further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Vice Chair Pendergraft's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, does so with the recommendation that Senate File 145 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 145 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 146.
Senate File 146, sponsored by Senator Boner. Consumer Rental Purchase Agreement Act Amendments, an act relating to trade and commerce. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 146 engrossed. Consumer Rental Purchase Agreement Act Amendments. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 146 do pass. I don't believe we have a standing committee amendment on this one. And so I will explain the bill. Again, committee, this one, if you look at the bill itself, it's actually a pretty substantial, thick packet of information here, but this is actually a very simple bill. A lot of what you're going to see there is a lot of conforming changes. And what we're doing is this body, maybe not all of you, but this particular body did see this exact same bill last year, made it through this body, went over, and it died a slow, miserable death over on the general file in the other body. And so we started it on the other side and brought it over here in hopes that we can maybe get this one across the finish line here. And what we're doing is we're basically bringing our consumer protection laws into the 21st century. And what does that mean exactly? Well, we've changed a lot of our consumer protection practices, but we have not adjusted our statutes to follow that. So right now, we have a lot of protection issues with our with rent-to-own companies and stuff like that across the state, that they also offer up online purchase agreements and those types of things. And this is basically allowing those consumer protections to be now added on to those particular online resellers, as well as if there's somebody who has let's say they have two different businesses and they're in two different counties, they can actually file underneath one company name with this particular organization, and they don't have to worry about getting multiple licenses to sell when it's the same company ultimately doing it. So really just updating our current statutes. There's not a ton of information here other than what I have gone over. If you certainly have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Looking at the microphones, not seeing a ton of eyes even up here. I think everybody's back to sleep again. Mr. Chairman, I would call for question.
Question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, and does so with the recommendation that Senate File 146 do pass, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 146 is passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 138.
Senate File 138, sponsored by Senator Dockstader. Energy Impact on Wyoming Economy Study, an act relating to energy. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 138 engrossed. Energy Impact on Wyoming Economy Study, respectfully report, same back to the House with recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Excused, Representatives Campbell and Riggins. Representative Heiner, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Heiner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File number 138 do pass, and I will explain this file. Members of the body, it's been 6 weeks that we've been in session here. We've dealt with a lot of different issues, and those of you that this is your first year, you've become an expert on noxious weeds. You've become an expert on banking trust laws. You've become experts on almost everything that comes before the body. How do we become experts? It's through diligent study, finding the data, and a lot of homework. But sometimes it's hard to find the data that you need to make informed decisions. Do you realize that Wyoming is a big exporter of energy? How big? Well, we equate to some of the countries in the Middle East. As far as the amount of energy we export, we are equal to or better than some of the Middle East countries. In order to have this information and make decisions that are going to be transgenerational, that's going to last for multi-decades, we need good information. That's what this is about. It's asking for a study and economic impacts of our energy industry in Wyoming. What is the true cost of alternative energy? What is the true benefit of a wind turbine as far as taxes, jobs, and revenue for the state? How does it compare to a coal-fired power plant, for example? How does it compare to a solar farm? So what this does is asks for a study, the Wyoming Energy Association, to provide a study by October that quantifies all the economic benefits of the various forms of energy. Now, what's interesting to me is the WEA agreed to do this study without any additional fiscal impact. How efficient can that be that they can put all this data together without asking for an additional people or money? That's wonderful. So here, as you go into the bill, some of the things it's going to put together is the mineral production, energy production, generation, energy and economic impact of that energy in Wyoming, how many jobs it creates, how much tax revenue it brings in. It'll evaluate that by each individual type of energy and mineral production, including wind, solar, nuclear, hydro. How many of you know how much hydro is in the state of Wyoming and how many employees it carries and what the payroll is?
It'll quantify how much the amount of state and local taxes are paid for the past 10 years for each one of these energy. As I mentioned, the employees, the payroll, any innovations that have happened in the past 10 years, and what kind of benefits. So this is no cost, but it'll bring data for us for the next session so all of us can realize how big is Wyoming in the world sense of energy production? Where do we fit in? And how important are we to the world? We had some international folks here a few days ago that talked about the impact tariffs have with their country because of the trade with Wyoming. As we make these decisions, it's important to know what kind of impact it would have on us and what we can do to further the benefit of Wyoming. We had a bill here signed just about a couple hours ago by the the executive downstairs that if we failed to have passed that bill, it could have impacted 15% of our revenue starting next year. Serious impact to our revenue. So all this does is it asks for a study, no cost, and it brings data to your fingertips in the future so you can make these vital decisions. And I stand for any questions.
Further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Heiner's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 138 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 138 is passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 103.
Senate File 103, sponsored by Senator Steinmetz, terminating and defunding diversity, equity, and inclusion, an act relating to the administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 103 engrossed, terminating and defunding diversity, equity, and inclusion, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Klauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger. Noes, Representative Yin. Excuse, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Rodriguez-Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 103 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the standing committee amendment. I'd be happy to explain the standing committee amendment before I turn the bill over.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the committee made a few changes. On page 1, line 3, after agencies, we insert the word public. So we're changing that throughout the bill, public, or insert public. Page 2, line 17, we delete in reference to, and we insert to promote differential treatment or special benefits based on. On page 2, line 23, we delete, we make the same correction in reference, we delete in reference to and insert to promote differential treatment or special benefits for persons based on. Then on page 3, after line 4, we insert and renumber. We create E that states a program, policy, or practice, regardless of its title, that seeks to advance the principles of prioritizing group identity over individual merit, or that promotes outcomes based on race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin unless explicitly required by federal law. And then on page 3, line 21, before the word entity, we insert the word governmental. So the bill focuses on governmental entities. On page 8, line 4, after related content, we insert means instruction advocating the concepts prohibited by Wyoming section 92-1014.4b. And Mr. Chairman, I would stand for any questions on the amendment.
Discussion on standing committee amendment number 1. Question being called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye. All those opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion, Representative.
Mr. Chairman, I will turn the explanation of the bill over to the good co-sponsor from the land of the wheat.
Speaker Pro Tem Haroldson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So today we have Senate File 103. It is terminating and defunding diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you go on page 1, lines 10 and 11, you see that we are creating Wyoming Statute 9-2-1014.4 and 21-16-2001. And we'll take up first that 9-2-1014.4. And if you go to page 2, you're going to see definitions. Line 1 says as used in this section, and it goes through and gives definitions so we have clarity as they're being used throughout this bill and kind of what that looks like. That goes all the way through to subsection B. Subsection B lays out what funds can be spent. And so this goes just beyond the federal or the state funds, basically any funds used in these entities, be them bequested, charged, deposited, donated, endowed, fees, grants, gifts, and tuition. And then it goes on and talks about what that looks like. So they said you cannot use these to, and it goes through establish, maintain diversity, equity, and inclusion officer programs, hire, assign an employee or contract person to perform the duties associated with the diversity, equity, and inclusion officer program. And it continues on through III, IV, V, and then goes into page 5 and goes into the nothing in this section shall be construed to, and then it goes and discusses the federal impacts. Also talks about the basically submitting a documentation or a statement of purpose for grants to comply with accreditation requirements, and just goes through those things that shall not be construed or prohibited. Then goes on to page 6 on, well, I guess we better, bottom of page 5, you've got subsection D, and it talks about for purpose of the subsection, diversity, equity, and inclusion officer programs shall not include. And it goes through and talks about academic course instructions. It talks about dissemination of scholarly research or creative work by students, faculty, or other research personnel of the University of Wyoming or Wyoming community colleges, and continues to go through laying those areas out. Then in E, the following shall apply to this section, and it goes through and talks about federally recognized Indian tribes. Their citizens are recognized by federal law and court rulings as a political class, classification, or identity. Tribes and their members are not a race or a racial classification for purposes of this subsection. That's just to align with the federal guidelines and to just bring clarity to that. And then the double I, talks about political classifications, identity, federally recognized Indian tribes, and continues to talk about what the Indian tribes are. So page 7, right after line 11 is kind of the end of that first subsection, and then we go into 21-16-2001. It's the prohibition on expenditures of funds for diversity, equity, and inclusion and critical race theory. And then it goes in and kind of the body there goes through and talks about what that actually means and looks like at our both community colleges as well as the university. And on page 9, line 14, towards the end, it says, well, we'll go and we'll just start on 10. In prescribing the studies to be pursued at the University of Wyoming or Wyoming Community College, the Board of Trustees of the University of Wyoming and the District Board of each community college shall establish curricula and designated courses in a manner that does not require or constrain students to expend tuition or other funds on or enroll in a related course in order to satisfy the requirements of any academic degree program, including general education, major, minor, or certificate requirements subject to subsection B of this section. What that's saying is that you do not have to go through like a gender equality or a DEI type program for diploma. And then as it goes through, it just kind of aligns what that looks like through that academia program. And then on page 11 in that section 3, you see that this is effective immediately. So what this does in essence is, in the past, we've had conversations about the defunding of this, and it's come usually in a budget amendment. This isn't a budget amendment. This is a full conversation and laying out the will of the body when it comes to these different programs that we've seen and have had come into our higher educational establishments. And so with that, I'd stand for any questions and would ask for your favorable consideration.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I'm actually really glad of the work of the Standing Committee Amendment because, remember, as the bill came to us, it was a straight-up First Amendment violation. So it was saying, the bill, as it came to us from the Senate, was saying that even a private institution that receives funds from the state, they can't use any of their other funds to talk about anything in this bill. So it was actually us as the state compelling the speech of a private institution or a private entity that received taxpayer funds. The bill still does the opposite, or kind of the inverse. So even with the amendment, the bill still restricts governmental entities that take in private donation funds from doing what the private donation funds has asked them to do. So if a private donor says, I want to talk about Black History Month and I want these donations to fund an event at the university or a community college, this bill still creates restrictions around how private donation funds are used within our public institutions. I think that's a real problem, and I think it's going to be a real problem for both our universities and our community colleges that want to try to get private funds, and saying that, you know, even though you're giving us this large chunk of money and you wanted this small chunk to donate to be directed towards this, we are going to say no to the entire donation. And I think the biggest problem with the bill, let alone being the First Amendment violation portion, is the part about the definition of diversity, equity, inclusion. And I think that's the biggest problem with the discourse around it within our entire country, is that we don't agree what those three words mean. And so the definition in the bill, we have a definition in the bill and it says it includes any of the following. The issue with the definition is it doesn't outline what it doesn't include. So it could literally include anything, because it includes any of the following, doesn't restrict what those three words could mean. So if someone in the future said this is DEI because it's something I don't like, that would have to end up being decided in a court of law, frankly, because we haven't set the borders very tightly around the language of what DEI actually means. You have an idea of what it means in your head. I have a different idea of what it means in my head. And that will create problems in the court going down the road. But in the current situation, what it will do is create a chilling effect around even things outside of what either of us agree on, because frankly, I think the schools won't know whether it's going to fall under it or not. I think we had the bill that came over from the other side that said compelled speech is not free speech, where we wanted to allow our government employees to have free speech and not be forced to say something. But now we're doing the opposite. So that's what this bill does. It actually compels speech, even if it doesn't do it of our private institutions anymore. Well, it does indirectly with the not allowing targeted funds to be used in whatever way they see fit, but it does it directly to our government employees. So we are compelling the speech of our government employees, our school boards, our board of trustees, saying, these are the things you cannot do. I'm telling you you can't do it. And that is doing the opposite of what our compelled speech is not free speech bill is doing. So with that, I speak against the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a comment and then a question for the body. The comment is that we've heard a lot of talk, and we all know this is true, about the brain drain, our young people leaving the state and not wanting to come back. And I'm going to comment that it's stuff like this that makes that happen. Our young people are not as concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion as some of us seem to be in this body. And passing laws like this simply make Wyoming an unwelcome place for the younger generation. If we want our young people to grow up here, learn here, stay here, this isn't helping. This is actually harming our attempts to retain our young people. The question that I have, it relates to the section, the section dealing with critical race theory, the second section that this amends, or creates, I should say. And it specifies that no funds shall be spent on, the title says no funds shall be spent on things like critical race theory. As the previous speaker was suggesting, we don't all agree on what that is or what DEI is. But my point is that critical race theory, properly understood, doesn't do most of what this bill says it does. It really doesn't. Critical race theory is the study of why are certain disfavored minorities more likely to be arrested, incarcerated? Why are they seeming to be disadvantaged by the current structure of our legal system? That's what it does. And that's an objective study. It's not attempting to force people to say bad things or think bad things. It's trying to understand objectively what's wrong. Why are certain minorities more frequently targets of police violence, for example? A lot of things that are going on that are being studied objectively, not trying to tell people what to think or how to believe. They're trying to legitimately find out what's going on in our justice system. And so the question I have for the bringer is, if a department at our great university, whether at the law school or other units at the university, if they fund studies to work on trying to find out what's going on here, why are certain minorities targeted more frequently in police stops, or shot or killed more frequently, or incarcerated more frequently. Objective studies, which is really critical race theory, can we not give those students funds, or those researchers or faculty members grants to engage in empirical studies, to find out what the root cause of this problem in society really is? It sounds like this is an attempt to suppress the creation of objective knowledge, and that is not what any university should do. And that's my question for the bringer.
Representative Landon Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is just strictly on implementation. And if you go to page 5, and it's lines 9 through 12, and it's, I guess, line 2 as well. It says, nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the University of Wyoming or the Wyoming Community Colleges or an employee thereof from submitting documentation or a statement for purposes of a grant or to comply with accreditation requirements. So my direct question is, for accreditation or for a grant, if it says, do you have a DEI standard, and it means just clicking the box to say yes, and they say yes, but we're prohibiting them by law to actually not have that, are we in fact requiring them or allowing them to commit perjury for purposes of trying to get a grant and or accreditation? And so I just trying to think to myself in my brain is, because I used to be a grant writer, and in the process of doing federal grants, you'll get these types of things. And it'll say, do you have this statement, this statement, this statement? And it's a checkbox, ladies and gentlemen, it really is. However, if I check that box and I apply for this grant from the federal government, or I apply for an accrediting body from somebody, and I say yes to this question, but then by state law, I'm not allowed to have that, did I just commit a crime, whether it be federally because I lied on the federal application, or did I commit perjury with the state by saying I have an opportunity here that I can get a grant for something, but I have to say that I have DEI positioning or whatever the case may be. So that is my only question on the entire bill. I think just about everything else in here seems like it was cleaned up. I do have some concerns, but all in all, I think the policy is good. But if I can get that answered, I'd appreciate it.
Representative Elisa Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of questions, and I'm hoping, maybe for some guidance. Would agree it's with the definitions that we've included for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and maybe those unintended consequences. Because of the lack of clarity, I think in those definitions or the room it leaves open, I have received a number of phone calls and emails and text messages from some of our folks with hearing, vision, and other disabilities who have job opportunities and positions that they have access to now because of some of those. And the reason they are hired for those opportunities is because of diversity and equity. So their concern is that because they have hearing loss or vision loss or blindness or impaired whatever, they will now be on the chopping block because that's why they have those opportunities. So a lot of concern from those folks. Second question that has been asked that I would pass along is clarity in terms of on page 2 and then moving into 3. So when we're talking, so line 12, no, actually starting with A, B, C, the reference is to race, color, ethnicity, race, color, ethnicity, race, color, ethnicity. But then we get to D with the trainings, programs, activities, and now we've thrown in gender dysphoria. So my question is, why did we decide to change it from race, color, ethnicity? That seemed to be the direction we were going in, so why the change there has been the question asked. And then again, I think on page 8, is where it shows up again, on page 8, with the course instruction, where then again throwing in gender. So the question being, why in those two are we including that, and what is the intent when we move away from race, color, and ethnicity? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few more questions I have on this bill. Unintended consequences kind of go back to the good representative from right here, is on that section 2 about, again, prohibit University of Wyoming reading for the bill. We have longstanding industries that a lot of people in the state write grants for, maybe oil and gas, the choo-choo, whatever we want to call them, that have DEI requirements for their grants. And so are we, my concern is that that's not addressed in this also.
Representative Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I had a question. The grant piece kind of bothers me in the donation piece. So if I might be misunderstanding it, but if it says that a school cannot receive a grant or donations that has anything to do with DEI, I wonder about that, because isn't that that's restricting the facility from being able to take private funds that they could probably use. So if somebody can clear that up in my head, I would like it. Thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Posey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few thoughts on this. Working in diversity over 30 years ago for a federal government, it was a hard road to get inroads in. I worked for a federal agency that was pretty much white male dominated for decades. And there was very good friends of mine that were district rangers at that time that would refuse to talk about diversity. And but we was friends. Over time, diversity at that time kind of followed the footsteps of affirmative action. And I don't think the efforts of affirmative action really took hold when they passed the bill of what it meant to be. It was more easier to hire females than people of color. But I think the efforts of diversity back 30 years ago had some good results later on. We had women and females in leadership positions. We had people from other countries coming in and reaping those benefits of being an inclusive society in the United States. And as a original inhabitant of where my people come from, it was a good thing. It was a good thing to see those efforts. I know where I'm currently employed, there's funding from private donors that specifically want to do something with our international students, tribal students, and so on and so forth. So I think we really need to think about this carefully of how we move forward with this and the efforts. I'm not saying that diversity and equity and inclusion have been successful. I could point in many areas where it hasn't been, but I think to cut it off completely from these institutions, my children go to those institutions. My oldest went to school over in that land-grant university across the mountain here. And I think those are some good efforts, but to stop those totally, I think will have some negative ramifications, as one of the speakers talked about earlier, about the brain drain that we have here in Wyoming. I mean, my two oldest don't live in the state even after they went to school here. And I wish I was here, but I think overall, we need to think about this and repercussions it may have. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question for the presenter on page 3, line 7, on the definition of entity. Why is corporation in there? I mean, it goes to the governmental unit, and especially this a corporation, partnership, or a person. Seems like you could just go with governmental unit that will receive a legislative appropriation and continue on, but thank you.
Further questions or discussion? Speaker Pro Tem Haraldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So good questions, and I'll try cover them all, and if I don't, I apologize. I'll start with the last one first. I believe that's a good catch. I think that is. I think that's something we'll probably have to have a conversation with, probably, if we're being honest, maybe more than that. If you actually look the next two as well. Because constitutionally, persons is a problem, right? So that's something that we can have a conversation on, but a good catch. I'm going to go back and talk about the private funds conversation. So what we're talking about is our public university and our public community colleges. The land-grant college over that hill is a college that is our college, the people of Wyoming's college. It's funded out of this body at a very high rate. And what we're saying is we don't want these things taught to our students in our college. Well, what about private funds? What if I want to donate? Well, you have an understanding that your donation won't be used for DEI type work. That's what this is stating. Hey, you could earmark it, but that's not something that's part of our land-grant college or our community colleges. And honestly, that's at the end of the day, if that's something that you really struggle with and you have then that's a policy decision you have to make. But at the end of the day, it would be a situation, I have an opportunity to stand as a pastor in a church. It'd be like someone coming in and saying, hey, we want to give this donation to your ministry, but we're going to earmark it to something that morally you disagree with. Well, that's not gonna work. The other thing is this, asking about kids leaving our state. I'm going to tell you with confidence, people in my community are at a point and place where they're no longer sending their kids to our college because of this. And you may not like hearing that, you may disagree with me, but that's absolutely the truth. That beautiful little violinist you guys got to see at the beginning of sessions, that's my daughter. And honestly, I'm very invested in this conversation because she's going over to that university over the hill to learn music, but I don't want it to be a deal where she learns other stuff with music, stuff that is not aligning with the belief structures nor the values. And you could sit there and say, you know what, kids are going to leave because of this. The truth is, honestly, a lot of the kids in this state, this doesn't align with their belief structure. That is everything that I'm hearing out of my community, that's the case. So we're a land-grant school. We have the ability to say how we're going to fund what we're doing. And then, you know what, I think that the reason, it could even be things like this are reasons we're not seeing kids come to our universities and stay in our state. People with handicaps. You cannot discriminate against, this is not going to open up a door for discrimination. And that's the thing you have to understand. When we're talking about teaching DEI in our schools and our universities, that doesn't automatically turn around and open the door for people to lose positions that they're in because of that. That's not going to be a door that we open with this. But what we are saying is this, hey, we're not going to allow you to teach that these are classes or positions that have a higher preference, right? And at the end of the day, we're not going to see that happen. The gender dysphoria conversation, why did that get brought in? Well, you guys, at this point, what we're seeing race, we're seeing sex, we're seeing gender, right? Those things. We're also seeing the dysphoria issues coming with that gender. So this is just aligning with that conversation. You guys, at the end of the day, there is a point where this is a never-ending target that's floating around as we continue to see more and more things come down the pike. But I believe that putting that in is definitely very much important. And on the DEI and grants, that's a conversation that I've phoned a friend and asked, and I'm still getting some answers on that. So as we continue down this pathway, we can continue to have that conversation, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. And if we can't, I mean, if we need to, we can have another conversation through a deleting the enacting clause to discuss that or whatever if it doesn't show up in the pipeline. But we'll definitely, and even as we're having this conversation on the floor, if it comes in, I'll address it. So I think that's most of the notes that I had.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 103. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just a quick amendment on the fly, as we just heard. If you'll look here, we're just striking the language that the good former chairman and good former speaker here caught, taking out corporation and basically just saying a governmental entity. So that's really what the crux of the bill is trying to get down to. And so what we do is we strike out the extra language there. It just strikes out corporation, partnership, or person. So that's all we're striking out. So the sentence would now read, entity means any governmental unit, special district that will receive a legislative appropriation. So I would ask for an aye vote.
Question being called and seeing no for, Representative Connolly? Nope. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Representative Connolly.
Yeah, I think that answered my question, because I thought really this bill was mostly to address the university and the colleges. But where it has special districts in it, counties, municipalities, and school districts all, I can probably see the reason for school district, but as in the definition of entity, I kind of wonder about that as well. I don't, especially counties and municipalities. I know there's probably some special districts that get some legislative appropriations, but I'm not really aware of that. Most of the district's funding comes from the local level. And so maybe some that.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee, my apologies. It does take out special districts in the amendment. So it just says governmental entity, which again is the intent of what we're trying to do with this. And so it takes out all those extracurriculars, we'll call them. So again, on and for.
Further discussion, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question to bring her the amendment is, what, you know, with that, the special districts, even though we're striking it, would still fit under what a governmental unit is.
Further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1. Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion. Question being called and seeing no one else at the mics. All those in favor of Chairman Rodriguez-Williams' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 103 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 103 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 5. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 5, sponsored by Senator Cooper. School district vehicles, flashing lights authorized. An act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your committee member for education, to whom is referred Senate File 5, school district vehicles, flashing lights authorized. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Guggenmoss, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Lawley, Vice Chair.
You've heard the reading of the bill. I don't see Chairman Andrews, so Representative Lawley, could you move that? Thank you. There he is. He's just walking in the back. Okay. You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 5 do pass. And I turn over the explanation to the sponsor.
Chairman Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, this is a very simple bill, but it's a very important one to these smaller rural school districts. And to start off with, I just would say that this bill relates to motor vehicles, specifying that school district vehicles that are not school buses and are used for transporting students may display flashing lights as specified and providing for an effective date. There's a new paragraph in this bill. The following vehicles are authorized to display flashing white and amber lights in addition to those otherwise authorized by law. Vehicles owned by, leased by, or registered to a public school district that are not school buses and that are used to transport children to or from school or in connection with school activities. So I would sure recommend an aye vote on this. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 5 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 5 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 154. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 154, sponsored by Senator Boner. Industrial, wind and solar projects, hearing deadline. An act relating to industrial development and siting. Mr. Speaker, you're at Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 154, Industrial, Wind, and Solar Projects, hearing deadline. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Excuse, Representative Riggins. Representative Heiner, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Heiner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File Number 154 do pass, and I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. And I turn the explanation of the bill over to the good representative from the town whose motto is big enough to enjoy, small enough, and I'll leave that blank.
Thank you.
Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to explain Senate File Number 154 and Standing Committee Amendment Number 1. This bill relates to industrial development and siting, amending the deadline for industrial siting permit applications, amending deadlines to cure incomplete applications, amending deadlines for counties to hold hearings and reach decisions on permit applications, specifying applicability and providing for an effective date. Basically, what this does is we went and added on pretty much 30 days across the board to everything. And what the purpose of this was to allow flexibility within the county so they would have enough time to allow for all the permitting to get accomplished. And it also allowed more time for public hearings and avoid needing to hire full-time employees, FTEs. By having this extra extension, it gives them enough time to where they don't have to buy or to acquire any more full-time employees to keep up. So if you look on page 2, where it says the applicant may agree to extend the date by which a public hearing is held under this section, that just gives them the ability to do it. And then you can go through in all the other sections and you will see that the timelines have been increased, which leads us to the amendment on this bill. If you go to page 3, on line 16, you'll notice that on this applicant, we had changed the time period from 30 days to 60 days with the receipt for additional information from the director. What the amendment does is we went ahead and changed that from 60 days back to 45 days because there is a 15-day period that can be challenged. So with that 15 days, it puts it back to the 60-day period. With that, I would stand for questions.
Any discussion on Standing Committee Amendment Number 1? Seeing none, do I hear the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Further discussion. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Heiner's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, does so with the recommendation that Senate File 154 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 154 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 86. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 86, sponsored by Senator Larson. Alternative Teaching Certificate, an act relating to the certification of teachers. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number for Education, to whom is referred Senate File 86 engrossed. Alternative Teaching Certificate. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation to do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Guggenmoss, Kelly, Singh, Strzok. Noes, Representatives Erickson, Lawley, Williams. Representative Lawley, Vice Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 86 do pass, and I turn over the explanation to the sponsor.
Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. So pretty much this is just giving our people that would like to go into education another way to be certified. So normally, and there's currently 4 companies doing this alternative routes for certification. And it would just give us a way to maybe speed it along for these places that they're looking for teachers and these people that have spent their life in different industries that would like to come in. Also, in some of our testimony, we also had people that are in other states and have all of their certifications, even been teaching, that would like to come and teach here and would like to be able to fast track it and get in there and get in and be teaching in some of these smaller schools that are really hurting for teachers. So that's about the extent of it. So I'd appreciate an eye on this. Thank you.
All right, we have a Committee of the Whole amendment, but so I'm going to go to Representative Jarvis, if you could move your Committee of the Whole amendment, and then we'll deal with that first.
Thank you, Chairman. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 1 for Senate File 86 and ask for your favorable consideration. I personally would consider this a friendly amendment, and I have reached out to the organizations that it impacts, and they consider it a friendly amendment as well. And I'll kind of explain the why. I sent everybody an email that links you to the verbiage for why these are important to not include. But the First Amendment basically takes out the accredited or non-accredited. And if you take a look at that email that I sent, for alternative teaching certification, there are a number of different ways that you can write, states can write acceptable programs of certification. When you say accredited and non-accredited, you are talking specifically only allowing that first bullet point, which is certification through a formal alternative teacher prep program. And when you use the words accredited, that specifies that you can only go that one specific route. And when you use non-accredited, it's a little misleading because non-accredited means the list that exists of people who've applied for accreditation but didn't get it. And so I'm not sure that the intentions, and I'll circle back and chat with if I'm wrong, but the intentions of non-accreditation and accreditation really then make it so that you can't use other methods like transitioning to teaching, national board certification, career and tech ed certification, emergency and provisional teaching licenses, in-district trainings, and teaching equivalency and portfolio evaluations. Because like it was just explained, the intention is that if these people hold certification somewhere else in some type of other methodology, then we should be able to honor that and fast track them into getting certification. So the having accredited or non-accredited in there really just pins us down to only be able to use one method and not the full capacity of all of those. The other one that I had on page 2, line 18, it says in there, after successful completion of an alternative certification program, the applicant may apply for employment with a school district without prior request of the superintendent. This one is a little misleading, and I think I kind of know where this is coming from. Because typically how it works is anyone can apply for any job in the state of Wyoming for any, you can put your application in there. If you don't hold the proper certification, then what can be done is a superintendent can write a letter to PTSB on your behalf saying that they actually know that you don't hold that valid certification, but they want to hire you anyway. And they're requesting a 2-year provisionary license. So basically, they've said, hey, if you'll get your certification in some way, method possible in 2 years, then I'm signing off on saying to PTSB that I'm going to help hold you accountable for being able to do this. And that's called a provisionary license. And so the way that it's written right now alludes to the fact that you should be able to get hired kind of without a superintendent recommendation. It doesn't work that way. Anytime you get hired in an organization, the superintendent is the one that recommends the hires to the board. So this language in there, I think they were trying to get around saying that you could apply if you didn't hold that certification, but in the state of Wyoming, anyone can apply for any job they want to. It's just a matter of how do they move you forward when you don't hold the proper certification. So that wording actually creates a problem that doesn't really exist. And you can't really take the superintendent out of it because it's the person who hires you. So that language in there makes absolutely no sense at the end of the day for this. And so the 2 amendments are really bringing back the integrity of the bill on being able to do this effectively and efficiently. I forgot to mention, so I know that the accredited language was put in there because they were really wanting a specific institution to be able to have to be part of this process. But when you do that, this really limits all the other pathways to being able to do it. So, and the language there it's a lot more conforming than it needs to be. I think you can get there to that specific agenda without having to do this. Thank you.
Representative Strzok.
Thank you, Chairman. And as on the amendment, I will tell you I'm not extremely clear on what we're trying to do. I just know when we sat through the committee, the sponsor of the bill really wanted, the big push was to leave accredited or non-accredited. That opens up the doors for all of the different groups that can come in and help get this accreditation or get this certificate. And then speaking about superintendent, I want everyone to remember that this leaves things open, so when you do go, the superintendent, your school board still has choices. They still do not have to hire anyone when you get your certification that through these groups and being able to come in. It doesn't stop any of that. And as far as I know, this bill still leaves it open for everybody. So thank you. I would be a no on the amendment, an aye on the bill.
Further discussion on the amendment, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't typically like to push back on those that are in the education field, but what I will say is I would say I'm on and against this amendment, and there's only one small reason why, because it's a very large reason. This bill is actually something that came across this body 3 years ago, then 2 years ago, and then last year. And I sat on the Education Committee for the past 8 years, and this same conversation has been coming up, and there has been a discussion that with PTSB, well, just give us a little bit of time and we'll find a way to work with these non-accredited places because we do recognize we've got a shortage of teachers. Just give us a little bit of time and we'll do it. Just give us a little bit of time and we'll find a way. Just help us out and we'll get it there. It's been 3 years that we have been working on this and trying to find a solution to get these non-accredited teachers in here. Some states do allow it. Some states allow these non-accredited teaching standards to come in and teach in their schools. So I've been playing the advocate of let's try to let this executive branch function work, right? Let's let this board do its job. But after 3 years of the same trick and pony show here, I'm not seeing any movement in this direction. I actually believe that this is a good bill and a good policy choice moving forward now. And it's not something that I typically like to go back on educators and say, well, I disagree with you and this is what needs to be done. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been 3 years in the making now. So I think it is time to push the hand a little bit on the Professional Teaching Standards Board and tell them that they need to start putting out some of these non-accredited teachers from these general institutions. I don't think we're going to cause serious harm by getting other teachers into the classroom. So I'd urge caution, and actually, no, I take that back. I would say no on this amendment and aye on the bill. And it's nothing personal. I think everybody remembers this. This is just something that I have seen. And it's been 3 years running now that we've seen this issue, and I think that it's time that we get these teachers in the classroom. So no on the amendment, aye for the bill.
Further discussion on the amendment, Representative Erickson. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to argue to counter the point from the good representative from here in Cheyenne, but I think that it's important that everyone recognize, even though in some opinions the PTSB has not provided what they asked for. However, I would also, and I did this in testimony, a lot of what I've heard talking to education people is they've made some great strides in getting more teachers into the classroom that may not have went on the typical fast track or normal track of becoming a teacher. And so we have to recognize that. Now, maybe in some opinions, they haven't went as fast as we want. However, I then would say to those individuals, in response to that, do we want to go and open this up to a non-accredited? And from what we received in testimony, you pay $1,900 and voila, you have a teaching certificate to come in. Is that what we're ready to do? They said in some of the testimony, 3 to 5 days from an overachiever that could have this course done, and they have their non-accredited license. Now, I know that superintendents and districts still have the choice as to whether or not to hire them. But I would also urge and make sure that people recognize that this is somewhat similar to, or at least is how it was perceived in the state of Wyoming. It was similar to House Bill 100. And I hope we can remember back all the negative comment that come in from across the state, and it was overwhelming. So be careful. And I ask again the question, in response to the Professional Teaching Standards Board not moving as fast as we want them to, we have to recognize that they're doing some great things. Let's stay with them. Let's not open this up to an embarrassment of certifying teachers, which it is in my opinion. And let's make sure that we keep that in focus, that we're moving in, and we certainly do not want the $1,900 and 3 to 5 years and you are a teacher. Thank you.
Representative Weber or Brady? Weber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the last couple of speakers and urge a no vote on the amendment and a yes vote on the bill. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment, Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good representative from Lincoln County, I think probably hit it the nail on the head. This is about money. It's about corporations that try to run this deal nationwide that no longer can do business in our state. I mean, let's call it what it is, and I'm going to say it right here on the House floor. And this bill allows them to come back into the state. And on the ground, our our board, so I disagree totally with what the good chairman of transportation said. This is a whole different issue. And this alternative certification is happening. I mean, I just think last year we hired a guy who had a construction management degree to work in our CTE area in our school. I mean, it's happening every year all across the state. I'd be really careful, though, about opening this up because it's about money. I think some people will get taken by it. And in the end, we have all these boards, whether it's cosmetology, barbers, medicine, teacher certification. All that is to make sure we have a quality and a protection of the consumer. And that goes throughout our history of the United States because we've had a few people out there that haven't worked in our best interest. And I think that's why we have this board and the other 100 boards similar to it. And so I'd be really careful. I'd vote for this amendment, and then we get a chance to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Further discussion, Representative Brown.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be the first one to tell you I will eat crow and that humble pie when I need to. And as I sat down, I got an email telling me that actually what I had said was not completely correct. Okay, so I'm going to be right here to tell you that I'm not completely correct, and I'm going to renege a little bit on what I had said. However, I still do stand in defiance that this bill is going to be the end of the world. I think what we have right now is, I did not mean in any way, shape, or form to demean the board that is doing this and working on these certifications, but I do think there has been probably a little bit of pushback on both parties, right? I think you've got two entities here. You've got a governmental entity and you've got a for-profit entity, and they're trying to do things, and both of them are saying that neither one of them are connecting and neither one of them are doing their work correctly. There's probably some truth on both sides here, but I actually do believe that allowing some of this work to get accomplished here with these for-profit companies is not going to hurt us. Maybe they have not done good business with us in the past. Maybe things have changed. I don't know. I do think what I would like to see us do is vote this amendment up or down, but I would like to make sure that this bill continues forward. And one of the biggest things that I'll tell you is this is what happens when you don't sit on that same committee any longer and you just go off of what the previous experience was. I had my preconceived notions on this particular bill that things just didn't get fixed, and that's why we're seeing it again. It's been 3 years running. So be the first one to admit that I was not, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong, ladies and gentlemen, and I admit it, but I think it's also important to recognize that we still need a little bit of work to do with the organization and with this company that is trying to come in and certify these teachers. So vote your conscience on the amendment, but definitely aye on the bill for right now.
Representative Worf. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to the amendment, and I'm going to circle back. I support the bill, but to me, I look at it, we talk all the time about local control issues, and I think this is a local control issue. If we've got a school district that's having a hard time finding somebody that's got the certification to teach, but you have somebody in the community that can fulfill that role or that niche, to me, I don't think it's appropriate for us to tell them that they can't. And so I look at this, to me, as more or less preserving local control. I'm not worried about them hiring somebody that doesn't have the proper credentials if they're able to convince their local board that they can fulfill the needs of teaching that class. I think it only makes sense to let that district hire the people that they need. And if they can't find certified instructors, let them go through this alternative process that may be out there that somebody else can say, I've got so many years work-related experience. I'm not a teacher, but I look at it, my wildlife profession, they always said, you know, so many years college or so many years work-related experience, and I don't know why they can't do the same thing in education. So against the amendment on the bill. Thank you.
Representative Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, listening to the comments, I realized that I did not do a very great job of being really clear on this. I'm actually 100% for the bill. But these two amendments really muddy things up in this bill. And they actually provide the bill to not be able to do so much of the things that it's wanting to do. Because if you look at the language, it says successful completion of an alternative certification program approved by the board that at a minimum requires passage of, and then it continues. When you remove accredited or non-accredited, it actually, the accredited term makes it really super conforming to only one pathway. The non-accredited form, if you look at it in the context for which it's written in education, that would mean that it's the list of organizations that applied to be accredited but were not approved, so now have just become approved. That's a whole different thing than all of these other pathways that exist in ways of becoming accredited. Those bullet points, that email that I sent, it takes those other abilities, those other pathways out of being options. So they're not options anymore if we keep that language in there. If we define non-accredited, as I'm hearing some of you define it, we're passing 100 where anyone, because then all I have to do is write a piece of paper that says, hey, I did an alternative certification program that I created. Here's my piece of paper. I know it's not accredited. It's non-accredited. I haven't ran it through anybody to see if it was okay when it was approved, but I've approved myself as being a great candidate for this. And I've just made it so anyone and everyone can be a teacher. And I think that's a road that we've all heard very loud and clear that we shouldn't go down. And for that, if it's going to be defining it that way, on this amendment, I'm going to call for ayes and noes.
So you can't call for the ayes and noes on cow, unfortunately. So
Then I'll be bringing it back on second and calling ayes and noes.
all right, Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things, again, expanding a little bit of my praise towards the PTSB. They have done some great things, just in local districts that I'm aware of, with knowing exactly who they've hired. They have transitioned from being very difficult to work around to individuals that are some of our best teachers. And they did not go through the formal 4-year accreditation from some university. They went through an ability to put their work forward. They had the ability to teach, but clearly different than what this particular bill calls for, and that is a non-credited, pay your credit card, get the individual certification from there as a non-credited. They mentioned that they had no interest in becoming accredited, so down the road that could be a major problem. And folks, you gotta recognize sometimes we glorify what we're hearing about, oh, school districts cannot find teachers. I don't think very many school boards are asking for this type of teacher. I think it's very different as to what they're asking for. They're asking for people that we know and trust and can go through what PIC programs and other programs that the Professional Teaching Standard Board has expanded in the last little while. And so keep that in mind also. This is not schools screaming and hollering for something like this. They are for what we're doing so far. Thank you.
Representative Geringer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to, I wasn't going to comment, but I heard something that I guess I need to clarify here. The way I read this, it says that the accredited or non-accredited alternative certification program, line 12, page 2, approved by the board. And so it's not some program that we can create for ourselves and say that we are accredited. It still has to be a program that's approved by the board.
Representative Jarvis.
So there's a national boards certification process that people go through, and you can do that and then be nationally recognized as an educator in whatever field you decide to do that process in. That's not a program. That's not a program. We've eliminated the ability when these people have gone through that process to be recognized in that area for certification. So what it's saying is you have to do an accredited or a non-accredited program in here. Like, this is truly limiting the ability to do the work of all of those different, and I'm going to call them pathways, all of the different pathways that are available to get there. And just to be clear, PTSB, can I say that? Is it in here? I may not be able to. That organization, that board that accredits our wonderful teachers of Wyoming, they have alternative certification programs already in place. They have pathways just like what were being talked about before, were PIC. And the PIC pathway is not through necessarily a program. There are other ways to get certified. So when we do this, we limit that ability to do those things. It's really, if you take out just those accredited or non-accredited, and the bottom is just a murky, mucky, making it sound like there's something happening that's really not happening story that really just doesn't need to be there. This bill is in fantastic shape to do exactly what it's designed to do.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just take a moment to look at the ceiling. I know we kind of make jokes about that, but it is incredible right now. On the bill, I guess something that came across to me that I'm slightly concerned about is there's the potential that we pass this and then school districts don't hire any of these folks. And so are we potentially false advertising to people to say, if you go get this certificate, you spend $2,000 or whatever to get this alternative certificate to teach, but then they aren't hired by anybody. And so I don't know if there was any comment on that in the committee, but it's a question that I have. If we offer this alternative, but clearly the different accreditations are superior to those, are school boards then not going to hire any of these folks, and then are they going to be out? So are we selling? Are we passing a bill that then sells a lie to people that you can get these other accreditations and you still won't have a job?
Further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1. Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has failed. We are okay. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. And this is on the amendment. All right, you may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. More than 14. All right. Committee of the Whole Amendment number one has failed. We're back on the bill. Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had an email myself, and there must be following our conversation. On page 2, I have someone who has a doctorate, retired. He wants to teach in not even my school district, but in somebody else's in his state. And he is saying, I have a doctorate, but why do I have to take and a successful completion of this accredited $2,000? He wants to know he has a doctorate. He wants to teach in our school. He'll even do it for free. But he doesn't want to have to do this $2,000 successful completion. So I'm going to bring an amendment, a friendly amendment back, because I think we have people, but the "and" is what he's caught up on in line 10.
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That wasn't me she was talking about. On and for the bill. Now, I understand the concerns about the non-accredited certification. And I'd like to address something about how this increases flexibility for districts. Now, I was a co-sponsor of the infamous bill that would allow an 18-year-old with a pulse and a background check to go into the classroom. And people would say, why would you do that? The same reason I support a bill like this. I trust the school boards. I trust the superintendents. I trust the districts to use their discerning wisdom to figure out who they need to hire. And the fewer restrictions the state has on them, the more avenues we open up, the more they can exercise that discretion. So I am completely in favor of this bill just for the fact that, because it takes the state back a step. And please, just trust your local districts to know who they need to hire. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 86 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. No. Senate File 86 is passed, Committee of the Whole. All right, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries.
Reading clerk will read the roll. Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 46, do pass amended. Senate File 56, do pass amended. Senate File 74, do pass amended. Senate File 113, do pass amended. Senate File 106, do pass. Senate File 26, do pass amended. Senate File 152, do pass amended. Senate File 121, do pass amended. Senate File 145, do pass amended. Senate File 146, do pass. Senate File 138, do pass. Senate File 103, do pass amended. Senate File 5, do pass. Senate File 154, do pass amended. Senate File 86, do pass. Representative Larson, JT, Chairman.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion has been adopted. Congratulations, Representative JT Larson. Get it out of your system. There you go. All right, sounds good. Good job. Messages from the Senate, please.
Message 341. Mr. Speaker, the Senate has made a change in the appointed Senate conferees to meet with the Light Committee Number 1 from the House on amendments to House Bill 199. The Senate conferees are Senator Olson, Chairman, Senator Brennan, Senator Rothfuss. Message 346. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 5, Fishing Outfitters and Guides Registration of Fishing Boats. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 19, noes 11, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 347. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 46, Homeschool Freedom Act. Ayes 28, noes 2, excused 1. Message 348. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 97, Property Conveyances Near Critical Infrastructure. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 29, noes 1, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 349. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 181, Funeral Contracts, Investment and Bonding Requirements. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 350. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 226, License Plate Search and Rescue Council. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 29, noes 1, excused 1. Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 351. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 39, Property Tax Refund Program Revisions. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 352. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 116, Driver's Licenses, Unauthorized Alien Restrictions. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 22, noes 8, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 353. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 75, Coroner Investigations, Disposition of Decedent's Property. Ayes 29, excused 2. Message 354. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 114, Missing Persons Reporting Requirement. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 355. Mr. Speaker, the Senate adopted the Committee of the Whole report failing the bill listed below by the vote indicated. House Joint Resolution 4, Constitutional Amendment, Veterans Property Tax Exemption. Ayes 6, noes 21, excused 3, conflict 1. The bill has been indefinitely postponed. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. First enrolled act for our consideration, number 30.
House Enrolled Act Number 30 being original House Bill 226, an act relating to motor vehicles license plates, authorizing specially designed license plates to be issued to benefit search and rescue efforts, specifying requirements, authorizing fees, making conforming amendments, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 30, having been original House Bill number 226. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Kevin Campbell. Moving on to Senate enrolled acts. First enrolled act for our consideration, number 23.
Senate Enrolled Act 23 being original Senate File 77, an act relating to the administration of government, prohibiting the state and its political subdivisions from requiring the use of preferred pronouns, authorizing a civil remedy, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 23, having originally been Senate File number 77. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act 24.
Senate Enrolled Act 24, being original Senate File 4, an act relating to criminal procedure, amending the definition of peace officer to clarify and expand the scope of authority for park rangers, superintendents, and assistant superintendents, making conforming amendments and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 24, having originally been Senate File number 4. I have so signed. Next Act, 25.
Senate Enrolled Act 25, being original Senate File 61, an act relating to environmental quality, clarifying the applicability of the property tax exemption for property used to eliminate, control, or prevent air, water, or land pollution, requiring rulemaking and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 25, having originally been Senate File number 61. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act 26.
Senate Enrolled Act 26, being original Senate File 82, an act relating to water development projects, authorizing specified Level 1 and Level 2 studies, providing appropriations, requiring reports, providing for the revision of unexpended funds, authorizing unobligated funds to be used to complete other designated projects as specified, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 26, having been originally Senate File number 82. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act 27.
Senate Enrolled Act 27, being original Senate File 130, an act relating to civil procedure, amending the exemption from civil liability for providing emergency services to include mental health crisis, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 27, having originally been Senate File number 130. I have so signed. Next Senate File Act for our consideration number 28.
Senate Enrolled Act 28, being original Senate File 143, an act relating to public funds, authorizing the deposit of public monies in credit unions, making conforming amendments and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 28, originally being Senate File number 143. I have so signed. Next, Senate Enrolled Act number 29.
Senate Enrolled Act 29, being original Senate File 151, an act relating to taxation and revenue, amending the distribution of ad valorem taxes on mineral productions collected on a monthly basis, making conforming amendments and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 29, having originally been Senate File number 151. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 30.
Senate Enrolled Act 30, being original Senate File 75, an act relating to county coroners, amending the disposition of property for decedents without personal representatives or next of kin, specifying the disposition of proceeds, making conforming amendments and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 30, having originally been Senate File number 75. I have so signed. Next and last act, number 31.
Senate Enrolled Act 31, being original Senate File 114, an act relating to criminal procedure, requiring the acceptance of reports of missing persons by law enforcement as specified, providing exceptions, specifying duties for law enforcement agencies and peace officers related to missing persons, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 31, having been original Senate File number 114. I have so signed. All right, next we have is some concurrences. Work through those. First one I have is message number 346, travel, Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move message number 346 to House Bill number 5 and ask for your aye vote. Folks, after this went back down to the other side and came back to us, there was some language added back in, certainly some major parts of the bill stripped back out that I, as the former sponsor and the person that walked this through our TRW committee, am fine with. And then it really makes that these folks are going to come back and report to the TRW committee probably in our second meeting after this board gets sat and give us some direction on where they think this should go. So with that, I ask for your aye on concurrence.
Any discussion? No discussion? We are voting on motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 5. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Feiler? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haraldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strzok? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Worf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Guggenmoss, aye. To no, further changes. Allemand, aye. To no. Angelos, aye. To no. Strzok, aye. To no. Lucas, aye. To no. Brown, Gary, aye. To no. Locke, aye. To no. McCann, aye. To no. Weber, aye. To no. Heft, aye. To no. Johnson, aye. To no. Bear, aye. To no. Heiner, aye. To no. Pendergraft, aye. To no. Further changes. Brady, aye. To no. Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 33 aye, 22 no, 7 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 5. Next message for our consideration is message number, yes, Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick privilege.
Please.
Okay. So usually when we get concurrence messages, and this is no reflection on any of the chairmen that have come up before, I think we're just out of practice in what we usually do during sessions, but when we do a concurrence message, there's not a lot of time for us to go through and look up the amendment and figure out what the other side of the hall did, right? And so my hope is that when we bring future concurrence messages, we have a little bit, it's not necessarily that we have discussion, but that we walk us through what those changes were that the body on the other side of the building did. Because I think as a baseline, it's probably fine to say the House, this body knows exactly what it did and we did a great job and we want to stand by what we did to bills. And we need to maybe be convinced that the other side of the building made changes that we just want to be walked through. That's my just kind of request, Mr. Speaker, and just as an iteration of what we've done in the past and good practice of walking people through, what are we voting on? Because things move very quickly and I think we should all know what we're voting for, right? So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity.
You bet. Thank you, Representative Provenza. We appreciate that. Okay. Next message for our consideration is message number 348 on House Bill 97. Representative Baer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And based on the comments of the last speaker, I'm going to take a few moments to really walk you all through this. And it is important. I am recommending a concurrence. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, I move message number 348 and ask for the body's I vote on concurrence. But listen carefully because you may not agree with that. So what the body down the hall did, first of all, let me remind you of this bill. This is House Bill 97, and this was correcting what the 67th legislature did for critical infrastructure. Originally, the bill that was passed in the 67th had our local clerks gathering information and comparing that information to those individuals who may not be here, may not legally be able to own property in the state of Wyoming. Well, that information is usually kept at that agency who keeps our homeland secure. So the bill itself was flipping that around so that the clerks were sending information to that agency, and then that agency would determine if someone should not be owning property in the state of Wyoming based on our laws. So it was a real good cleanup bill to make it workable. What the body down the hall did is they cleaned up a little bit more language, but then they added in language from a bill that this body defeated earlier this session, and that bill would be House Bill 50. So if you have angst about House Bill 50, and I'll give you a moment to look it up before we get to a vote, you may not want to concur. And so with that, I'll ask for your concurrence, and if not, I'll take it to a meeting.
Representative Washington, discussion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that the good representative from county number 3 brought an altered version, slightly altered version of House Bill 50, and it did pass this body.
Any other discussion? Seeing no more further discussion, Representative Yin, further discussion.
Mr. Speaker, 1 second. I apologize. I'm not trying to delay, but I wanted to double check that had actually passed this body. It passed through committee, but it didn't make it to committee of the whole. So it actually didn't get out of here to the other chamber. And I think that the language that they added was actually the version that member from county number 3 brought, where it's a may instead of a shall. Oh, no, it didn't change the part above it. So it's some of the language from that bill, but not all of the language from that bill.
Any other member, discussion? Seeing none, back to the chairman. We good? Oh, wait a minute, we got one more that'd like to have some questions answered. Representative Wharf, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but there's some confusion. I know House Bill 50 was mentioned, and I think that's kind of got people confused. What bill is it that we're actually talking about?
We're talking about House Bill 97. Representative Washut, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the issue here is sharing of information between the office of, that does our criminal stuff under the good attorney, and the office that takes care of Homeland Security. There's nothing nefarious about that information sharing. Okay, there really isn't. Because it is determined by a need-to-know basis. If you think about the functions of that office that takes care of Homeland issues, one of their missions items deals with terrorism, and there are times where it's appropriate and I would say necessary for that information to be freely shared so that that office can fulfill that mission. And so it's pretty common where we'll see little amendments like this added into a bill. But frankly, I don't see anything nefarious about House Bill 50. I wish that the amended version that the representative from County 3 had passed all the way through, but I have no problem supporting this concurrence with that language amended into it. I don't think it hurts the bill.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Someone came up and asked me about germaneness, and I would consider this amendment germane that the other body inserted, because it is dealing with information and it is dealing with that agency, as the original bill was also dealing with that agency and information. So I don't consider it ingermane. I think it was appropriate to put it in here. The question is whether this body had angst about whether we wanted that language in the green books at all, based on our prior actions. But I see no issue with it and recommend an aye vote.
Representative Yin, would you like to speak to this? Okay. All right. We are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 97. A majority of the elected members is required. The chief clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Excused, Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Feiler? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Excused, Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmidt? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Ossenberger? Webb? Weber? Wharf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Brown, Landon, no to aye. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 58 aye, 4 excused.
By your vote, you have voted to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 97. Next message for our consideration is message number 352 on House Bill 116. Representative Knapp, please. Representative Knapp.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would move message number 352 to House Bill 116, driver's license unauthorized alien restrictions, and ask for your aye vote on concurrence. Basically, what the body down the hall did was took a paragraph in here that says a non-resident who has in his immediate possession a valid license issued to him by the licensing authority in his place of residence. If the non-resident's license is not invalid under Wyoming statute, and added, or the non-resident can demonstrate lawful presence in the United States. So with that, I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Chairman Knapp. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we are voting on the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 116. A majority of the elected members is required. Chief Clerk will please call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, excused, Brown, Gary. Repeat. Brown, Landon. Byron. Campbell, Elisa. Campbell, Kevin. Chestick. Clauston. Connolly. Davis. Eklund. Erickson. Feiler. Geringer. Guggenmoss. Haraldson. Harshman. Heiner. Heft. Jarvis. Johnson. Kelly. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Excused. Lean. Excused. Locke. Lucas. McCann. Nicholas. Ottman. Pendergraft. Posey. Provenza. Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams. Schmid. Sherwood. Singh. Smith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Thayer. Washut. Wasserberger. Webb. Weber. Wharf. Williams. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Mr. Speaker, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Storer, aye. To no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 52 aye, 6 no, 4 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 116. Standing committee reports.
Senate Joint Resolution 1, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Convention of States, a joint resolution requesting Congress to call a convention for proposing amendments to the United States Constitution as specified. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4 Education, to whom is referred Senate Joint Resolution 1, Convention of States, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Erickson, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Williams. Noes, Representatives Bratton, Guggenmoss, Strzok. Representative Andrew, Chairman. Senate File 70, sponsored by Capital Finance. Investment Modernization, State Non-Permanent Funds. An act relating to public funds. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 70. Investment Modernization, State Non-Permanent Funds. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Allemand, Angelos, Bear, Haraldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman. Senate File 97, sponsored by Senator Case. Trust Code Revisions, an act relating to the Uniform Trust Code. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 97, Trust Code Revisions. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmid, Weber. Excused, Representative Tarver. Representative Heiner, Chairman. Senate File 104, sponsored by Senator Crago. Probate Code Revisions, an act relating to the Probate Code. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 104 engrossed, Probate Code Revisions. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmid, Weber. Excused, Representative Tarver. Representative Heiner, Chairman. Senate File 109, sponsored by Senator Brennan. Open enrollment within Wyoming school districts, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 109 engrossed. Open enrollment within Wyoming school districts. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Guggenmoss, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok. Noes, Representative Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman. Senate File 125, sponsored by Senator Steinmetz, defining healthcare and protecting the people's welfare, an act relating to statutes and rules of construction. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 125 engrossed, defining healthcare and protecting the people's welfare, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Klauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez, Williams, Wasserberger. Noes, Representative Yen. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez, Williams, Chairman. Senate File 132, sponsored by Senator Jones, protecting critical infrastructure and system from drones, an act relating to defense forces and affairs. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 132 engrossed, protecting critical infrastructure and systems from drones. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Representative Heiner, Chairman. Senate File 158, sponsored by Senator Jones, virtual credit cards and network leasing dental services, an act relating to the insurance code. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 158 engrossed, virtual credit cards and network leasing dental services, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Klauston, Guggenmoss, McCann, Ottman, Wasserberger, Yin. Noes, Representative Heft. Excused, Representative Rodriguez Williams and Representative Stivar. Representative Ottman, Vice Chairman. Senate File 167, sponsored by Senator Dockstader, Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Criminal History Records, an act relating to professions and occupations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 167, Board of Chiropractic Examiners, Criminal History Records, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Klauston, Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Wasserberger, Yen. Excused, Representative Rodriguez Williams, Stivar. Representative Ottman, Vice Chairman. Senate File 187, sponsored by Senator Hicks. Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions, an act relating to public employee retirement. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 187, Public Employee Retirement Plan Contributions, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann, Yin. Noes, Representatives Klauston, Ottman, Wasserberger. Excused, Representative Rodriguez, Williams, and Stivar. Representative Ottman, Vice Chairman.
We do have one re-referral. Representative Chairman Williams. We'll re-refer regarding Senate File 187.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to re-refer Senate File 187 to Committee Number 2 Appropriations.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ottman. Re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropes. You good? Representative Knapp.
Mr. Speaker, your Corporation 7 would like to re-refer Senate File 165 and 166 to Committee Number 8.
Without objection from the body?
Mr. Speaker, as well, we'd like to re-refer from Corporation 7, Senate File 155 to Committee Number 10, Labor.
Without objection from the body? Senate Files 165, 166, and 155 have been re-referred. Any other announcements? Okay, moving on to committee announcements. Do we have any committee announcements? Chairman Locke.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 3, Revenue, will meet tomorrow morning at 8:30 in extension 005, and we will hear one bill, Senate File 38, Performance Compensation Investment Performance Amendment.
Thank you, Chairman Locke. Chairman Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee Number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources will meet upon noon recess tomorrow in Room 5 and online to hear Senate File 171.
Thank you, Chairman Byron. Chairman Winter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As far as I know, we have no bills for tomorrow, so there'll be no agriculture meeting.
It's getting to be that time in the session, isn't it? Thank you, Chairman Winter. Chairman Bear, Number 2, Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee Number 2 does have bills to review, so tonight we'll be meeting in 15 minutes in Room 301 and online to complete our discussion on Senate File 169, Strategic Investments and Projects Account Repeal. We'll also discuss carbon dioxide enhancement, oil recovery stimulus on re-referral, and we will meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. in Capitol Room E301 to discuss Senate File 196, Second Amendment Protection Act amendments.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee Number 8 works hard, but not quite as hard as that Committee Number 2. So we will meet tomorrow at noon to hear two bills, Senate File 24 and Senate Joint Resolution 7.
Thank you, Chairman. Any joint conference committee reports? Any of those coming up? Need to be reported? None? We're good? Nope. Here we got one. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Representative.
Mr. Speaker. Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Please, by all means, go ahead.
Your joint conference committee hearing or meeting on Senate File 32 will meet tomorrow at 8:15-ish, following Senate File 33 to deal with the urban or unpaved roads speed limits.
Thank you, Representative Geringer. Representative Eklund.
Privilege.
Please proceed, sir.
There's my light. I'd like to extend an invitation for the whole body to come, not tomorrow morning, but Wednesday morning, to hear the Ag Issues team from Laramie come and present. Anyone who wants to can come and get to be a judge and help these young people develop and prepare for the state meet and maybe nationals if I lost my little picture here that told me what they were going to do. Anyway, I'll explain that later. It's on some BLM management and whether or not the new rules are management or they impede rights, and it's going to be an interesting one. But it's not just for them, it's for us too, because I had no idea that these new rules were in place, and it'd be good for any of us to learn about that.
Thank you, Representative Eklund. Appreciate that announcement. Any other announcements? I do believe that clears the deck. Good majority floor leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move that the House stand in adjournment until 10 o'clock a.m. on February 25th, a Tuesday.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The motion has been adopted. This House will stand adjourned until tomorrow, the 30th day of the session, February the 25th, 2025. You folks have a restful and good evening.